I'm back for another King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard tier list. Now, if you've seen that I made another one, it might be like 2 months later, you make another one. Well, the first one, I was in a little bubble. There was like a big ad on the screen. I was like, I can do it better this way. I can do it better this way. So I'm back. I'm gonna try it again. The Silver Cord released, and I've gotta talk about that for a bit. So I'm gonna be going through each of the albums, but not only that, but I self-taught myself bass using pretty much exclusively King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. So I thought it would be interesting for me to also try to incorporate music theory and ideas from each of their albums to talk about what they're doing, as well as how you can think about music yourself, for either creating or just listening to it, and to hopefully improve your experience a little bit. Now, hopefully everything's working. So yeah, I have a bunch of notes here. I anticipate if I'm going to be talking about all the albums and I want to do a consistent and good job, I better have some notes that I'm taking on each of them. I plan on reviewing each of the albums at least a little bit. Like some of them, the reviews are going to be pretty short, but reviewing and then ranking each of them as well. And then I've also got the series of all of the vinyl that I have that I can go through. So first and foremost, let's look at this. This is the Fuzz Club edition of Teenage Gizzard. This is just an example. Where it's just a nice blue disc. Cool packaging. This one's not even an album that counts on this list, so I can show it now. So I'm also going to be going over these and yeah, a little bit of the packaging and the cool vinyl. A very strong element of the band. And then one last detail I've got to give is that my fiance's in the other room playing Dave the Diver, and she can hear everything that I'm saying. So, it makes you a little bit self-conscious. Yeah, I agree that this is some pretty sick art. So Fuzz Club is the name of the group that did it. Fuzz Club has a lot of King Gizzard like bootleg stuff because of how much they allow other people to make albums. I know that they've got one of the Red Rocks 22 that's like $300, but it looks incredible. But yeah, I like the case of this one. Typically, like if you get an album, this is just like white, just a white casing, but that psychedelic pattern is all quick. There we go. Let's step up. You know what, Peas? I set up. I put that up there thinking that would be in view. That metal plate with the 3 albums on it, but that's okay. This is in view, and that's what's most important. Oh, sorry. I gotta make sure that I'm talking into the mic, you know what I'm saying? So, the band King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. They started as a 7-member band. Now they're 6. We'll talk about that a bit later. Out of Melbourne, Australia. A lot of them were friends as children, but a lot of them went to the same music school together, and that's where they met at college. And the guy who kind of brought them all together, this might not surprise you, was Stu McKenzie. He's the lead of the band. And while they were all at music school, I haven't been to music school, but music school is a lot of people who are just like, I'm good at music. I'm gonna try to be pretentious and really push myself and change music. But Stu would show up and he'd play songs with 3 chords or less, where he'd unsurprisingly be like just shouting mostly the same thing over and over, but it would get everyone going. And that's one of the main driving forces that brought people together. So originally they weren't called King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, but it was like a jam group where anyone could show up. Whether or not they could or couldn't play instruments, it could just be someone banging a drum, banging a drum, someone who doesn't know how to play, getting an open tuning on a guitar and just playing the open strings, that one chord in time. And that was like the early days of the band, and I think that shows a lot in their early music. But from that point, they're like I have Ambrose, one of the band members, has been talked about at that time. Just like he could sense that they had it. Where it's even though the music was simple, it had the energy that he thought that it had the energy that he thought that the band needed to succeed. So the name King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. There's plenty of theories about what it comes from. The most popular for a while, and the one on like Wikipedia, is that it was named after like, yeah. You know, I actually don't think that he said rattlesnake all day at school, because rattlesnakes aren't in Australia. Rattlesnakes, I don't know if they're exclusively an America's thing, but they're not in Australia. So he probably wouldn't have been saying rattle, a kangaroo, something like that. But yeah, so King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, the name. There's theories that it was after Jim Morrison's nickname. That's what like Stu wanted. I think that's like Gizzard or maybe King Lizard. I can't remember. And there's also another theory that it's named after a scene in The Wizard of Oz, where there's like words that almost directly say King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. But both of those have been directly disproven by the band. What is relevant is that they had a bunch of different random names. But King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is the first one that was published on a poster when they were playing a gig, as a joke group. But because that's the first name that was printed on a poster that they went in under, that's the one that stuck. And a couple of the band members aren't happy about that, but you know, it's memorable and you can't deny it, right? So the original 7 members of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, of course, we talked about Stu. Stu McKenzie is the vocalist and writer of most of the King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard songs, and this is notable. He's the only band member without a side project. And now, what do you mean by that? They released 5 albums last year. Oh, you didn't know? They all have side projects. They're also constantly working. A lot of them are touring with other groups as well. The most notable of these side projects is called the Murlocs, which is led by Ambrose, and it also has Cookie, who we'll talk about in a second. So then the number 2 guy is Joey. He's the guitar virtuoso of the group. He's the one who takes the solos, and he writes the second most amount of songs. The notable thing about Joey, which is going to come back up much later, is that he at heart is an electronic musician. His side project is called Bullet, and electronic music is really where he is at heart. It's just he picked up the guitar as like part of the part of the band, and so he and Stu make up a lot of the melodic voicings of the band. And then after that, we've got I'm going to bring up Cavs. Cavs is the drummer. He's just a drummer sent from heaven, I'd say. There's performances on YouTube of just like him talking about the drums and playing for just an hour straight, and it's you can see by how many views it has. The people really like what he does. He's got a solo drum album as well. And then we got Ambrose. Ambrose is a favorite of many. He's on the keys, on the harmonica. Recently, he's been on the saxophone a bit, which has some mixed results, at least from my ear. But that's just me. He's the second most common vocalist. A lot of times, if you're new, you might be like, is that the voice of a woman? No, that's Andy. After that, we've got Cookie. Cookie plays, so Cookie, he's got long blonde hair. He's a guy chilling on the side. He'll play bass, he'll play guitar, he'll play keyboards. He writes some of the songs. So you don't hear anywhere near as much from him, but he's an integral part to really filling out the sound of the band. And that's one of the reasons why they can sound so huge in comparison to other groups, is because they have like Cookie and Andy filling out the middle, where the Cavs and then Lukey, the bassist, fill out that low end. I don't have to say too much about Lukey. I've got the bass, and they said that I learned everything from King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. You can infer. And then at the very beginning, we have Eric Moore. Eric Moore is the second drummer. On a lot of their albums, the credits of them, for Joey, it'll say like nothing. I mean, not Joey, Eric. Right next to Eric, it'll say like did nothing. And if you ever look at any of their live performances, back when Eric was playing with them, like his drum set is tiny. His cymbals have like holes in it, and they're all battered and stuff. And you can think about him like he was adding the flavor percussion to the early group sound, Eric, and he had a good personality. He came in a lot of the interviews when like Stu would be a little awkward and the band would be awkward. He'd be there and he'd be funny. So yeah, you like Joey a bit. His ideas are sort of cool. I think that a lot of their ideas are pretty cool, but mostly Joey and Stu in particular have the coolest ideas. That's why we're here, is it not? So now, as we start going into the tier list here, I'm going to, after this is through, I'm going to go in and I'm going to put timestamps for each of the albums for the future, because I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't know how long we're going to get sidetracked on some of these. And most importantly, is we're going to just be talking about the regular albums. But my favorite albums are, my favorite, like, King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard are their live performances on, like, KEXP or, like, wall-recorded live shows. So, like, my favorite album to listen to is Red Rocks 2022. And yeah, my favorite videos on the KEXP sessions. There was like a Palp Festival show, which is just professionally shot and edited, and it sounds great. Like that's the peak listening for me. Like the studio albums are something, but as a live group, they're incredible, and I think that those are the most fulfilling experiences for me, at least from the super fan perspective, I suppose. All right. So let's get going. First off, we've got Willoughby's Beach. You like the size of this monitor? Thanks. I didn't know how it would look with this, but like, look at how big it looks. Willoughby's Beach. Now, there's a little bit of debate as to whether or not this should count as an album, or because it's more of an EP. They had an EP before this, Anglesey, which I haven't listened to. I have Teenage Gizzard, and I'm pretty sure that has a lot of the songs. But this is generally considered an EP. I'm counting it as an album because I've listened to it like 4 or 5 times, so I have the ability to talk about it. So this came out in 2011. Stu and pretty much everyone in the band were 20 at the time. Just to give you a perspective, I'm going to be bringing in the age element a lot, because I think that they've accomplished a lot. Obviously, they've accomplished a lot, but even like at a young age, they started accomplishing a lot. This, in particular, not the highlight of their career, but it is unbelievably fun. It's unbelievably fun surf rock. At this time, in 2011, we're in the burgeoning California rock resurgence. We've got bands like Ty Segall, and all of them are coming up. We've got VOCs are gaining popularity, and you could hear that influence on the sound that they take here. It's fun surf rock. They're bringing in that classic signature delay effect already, which has been popularized by VOCs. That's if I go whoop 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 whoop, did you know what I'm talking about? Like it happens. I know at the beginning of like Mars for the Rich, like there's like a whoop 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 whoop. But essentially, it's a delay pedal effect that they love to use all the time, and it's like a classic way that they like to end songs and play it live, and it's fun to hear it just from the very start. You can hear so many key elements of their sound, but at the same time, this thing it's under 23 minutes. Yesterday, boop, 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 I'm assuming you got to know what I'm talking about then. If you're typing it, boop 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 boop. Yesterday, just to try to prove a point, I decided against trying to play them on the guitar, but I just within 2 minutes was able to piece together how like the entire song structure of 2 of these songs. The two of the favorites, Lunch Meat and Crocodile, they're essentially just chugging one chord, and they have one unbelievably simple riff underneath it, and then one of them has a chorus that goes through like 4 different major chords. These songs are like, construction-wise, unbelievably simple. Like they're your week 1 guitar level simplicity, which kind of goes into the ethos of the group originally, where it's anyone could show up and play a part of it. But it's the way that they are able to work as a group of 7 to create this wall of insane fun sound that makes it work. So Willoughby's Beach is not a highlight. It's a starting point, but you could hear a lot of elements of the band coming from it. My favorite song off of it is probably Lunch Meat, and then Crocodile is another popular one. This one, it's good to get an idea of what old Giz sounds like. But if we're talking about where it belongs on a tier list, I'm just gonna put it in C tier for now. Can I delete this D tier? I hate to spoil that. Why do you think we're here? The piece of tape stuck. Continuing on. let's talk about. See, can I dangle it over and it'll work? Ooh, next album, indeed. And you can see which one's on there. Do you like this strategy? It's better than maybe when I was just like wiggling it with my phone screen, doing the screen share. I'm hoping that this works. So 12 Bar Bruise is the Fox speech. I was hoping. We'll try to see how much paper I could get stacked up behind that. So this is the follow-up, 12 Bar Bruise. This is their first album release, and honestly, if you like looking at it, it's pretty diverse for early King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Like if you've heard it before, there's like songs like Sam Cherry's Last Shot, which I know it kind of doesn't fit the flow of the album, but it harkens to what they're gonna do in the future with Eyes Like the Sky. They've got Cutthroat Boogie. They've got boogie songs. They've got like just classic kind of like garage rock sounds with like Elbow. And then later on, they've got some silly songs like Uh-Oh, I Call Mom. I know that some people love her. Footy Footy. Footy Footy is a song about Stu's love for soccer, which is what or football. I'm sorry, I'm American. Which is what he would have done allegedly, had he not succeeded with King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. My understanding is he's good, but like I've never seen video of Stu McKenzie playing soccer, and that's not going to be a use of my time. Okay, at least not anytime soon. So this album, 12 Bar Bruise, has the first song that they released with Boogie in the title. Now, why is that relevant? It's because every song that they write that has Boogie in it goes hard. They all groove. And so feel free to think about that as we're going forward, what songs fit in there. And honestly, so just 12 Bar Bruise as a whole. Once again, we're not talking about the peak of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard here, but this is an engaging listen that is a significant step up in maturity, I'd say, from Willoughby's Beach, and is very promising. My favorite song off of this is Sea of Trees, which they've actually started to play live and jam on a bit more recently. But yeah, so you know what? Let's try testing out the bass here. I'm gonna play the riff elbow. The riffer elbow is the most famous bass riff off of 12 Bar Bruise, and it'll sound a little bit similar to something that I'm gonna want to bring up later with another riff that's a little bit more famous and notable. So let's did I mean let's go too far? There we go. So this is still the level of complexity that we're talking about, okay? If ever you're like, I love them so much, but I can't make music like that, listen to Willoughby's Beach, listen to 12 Bar Bruise, and you're going to be like, I think I could actually write some of that stuff. It's part of having the collection of friends working together, all working to improve the sound. That is what really brings these songs together and gives them their energy. And that's like it's a special sauce. You gotta have it. You gotta work on it, right? Like you can't just write a one chord song and it'll be on an album that people will listen to. But you don't need these highly complex polyrhythms and crazy chord progressions that we're going to be talking about later in order to make good, memorable music. So I actually really enjoy 12 Bar Bruise. I returned all these albums I listened to twice to prepare for this. And my enjoyment of 12 Bar Bruise was actually higher than I anticipated it would be. It's better than I remembered it would be. So I'm gonna end it there, right? I can't talk too much about all these. So 12 Bar Bruise. I'm gonna put that in the B tier. We're gonna see how many things go in the B and C tier, but 12 BB Bar Bruise, the triple B, like all the B's, it makes sense. It'll go into the B tier. After this, my understanding is that Stu was upset after Willoughby's Beach and 12 Bar Bruise that they were starting to get, going up with the B tier. I mean, 12 Bar Bruise is superior to Willoughby's Beach. I don't think that anyone would disagree with that. So nothing crazy yet. Okay, nothing crazy. After that, apparently Stu was upset because the band started to get typecast for that sound that they were using on both the first two albums, that fun surf rock sound. He was just like, I wanna throw in a curveball, and the curveball that he threw in is Eyes Like the Sky. You can see, like, I don't know if you've seen this album cover before, but like, you can kind of tell what's going on there. This is a very normal album. It's a spaghetti western audiobook, which is narrated by Ambrose, the harmonica, the keyboard guy with the higher voice. His father is the one who narrates this story about an American man who gets raised by Apache, and he's called Eyes Like the Sky because he's got blue eyes. And you got it. This album's dope as hell, right? To go from the normal ones that they were working on previously to just decide to come out with a spaghetti western audiobook and like actually put some serious effort into creating it. It's an incredible feat. I'd say it shows the sonic exploration that they were willing to do really early on. At this point, yeah, this is just album number 3. They're like 22, something like that. So, and to me, this is their first clear concept album. Now, they say, and now there's a lot of evidence showing this. Stu says, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is a concept discography. It's all one story that ties together. Now, I don't know how Eyes Like the Sky ties in with Hunt Yumi personally, but I can't say. This definitely is. It is a concept album because it's telling the story of this man. Now that we're getting into more serious concept albums, I've got to say the latter half of this album, if we're talking about like Fort Whipple, Godman's Goat Lust, The Killing Ground, it's a little bit weaker for me. When the first half of this album, it's only 28 minutes long, is really where it shines. So the latter half, a little bit more disappointing, and I also don't like where the story ends up heading, but the soundscapes that they're able to set up on this are incredible. Now, let's talk about the minor pentatonic scale. You're listening to Eyes Like the Sky, you're just like, how are they getting that western sound? And the way that they're getting that western sound is this thing called the pentatonic scale. This is the easiest one that there is out there. It's like 5 notes, and with it you can do solos, you can write songs, you do almost anything. There are like guitarists out there who learn the minor pentatonic and nothing else, and then they can get through life like that. So if we're talking about just the song Eyes Like the Sky, it kind of goes like, and I'm just using just those notes. And then it's so easy to also just improvise over it too. So the minor pentatonic scale, this is like the step up. Before it was just one chord, now it's just, okay, well, we'll go into our minor pentatonics. I recommend you try it on your own. It's easier than you'd think. It's the first scale you learn. It's so easy to come up with your own ideas, and you get that western sound with such little effort. So if we're talking about my favorite songs on this, I think my favorite songs are Eyes Like the Sky and The Year of Our Lord. Off of it, it's I don't go back to listen to it too often, but it's like a staple for showing their creativity and their willingness to explore just different sonic horizons. The spaghetti western sounds that they get on this are incredible. The percussion on this, like with the the classic old King Gizzard mixing where it feels like it's on a tape that was recorded and left in the sun from 1967 through 2003. Yeah, and it's just like melting. And like the way that impacts the saturation on the drums is great. I'm glad that I was able to sell Eyes Like the Sky to you. We'll see. I'm trying to remember which ones you haven't listened to. It's one you listen to it once, listen for the soundscapes. Don't be like, how does this compare to PetroDragonic Apocalypse? Because you're not going to be able to compare it in that way. For now, I'm gonna put it in the B tier though. I'm gonna put it above 12 Bar Bruise. I love what I love what they tried to do with it. Like it's just so balls balls to the wall. Let's just create a spaghetti western audiobook and show that we're not just a fun surf rock group. And I really appreciate it for that. So let's move on to Float Along, Fill Your Lungs. Now this one, thankfully, we can return to me having a vinyl. I have a vinyl of this. This is a lot of people love this art. I know. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, they have their own artist. His name is Jason Galea. He's the one who does he does the shirt designs, he does the poster designs, he does the concert art, he does the album covers, he directs a lot of their music videos. He makes the album covers. This one, compared to like Oddments, compared to most of the ones that I'm going to be showing, it's not the same. You get to see all the boys, that's true, but this is the good one. Now, on the other hand, I got this fancy psychedelic eyeball look. So imagine having this spin. It's so good, especially when this album opens with their first epic, Head on Pill. So having that cover like essentially like the whole of one half. See the spinning for that. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic time. Yeah, I agree. The psychedelic eyeball is one of my favorites. A little bit of a spoiler. For what where I'm gonna be putting it. Float Along, Fill Your Lungs is it's not near my favorite album of theirs, but when I saw that I could get that psychedelic eyeball and think about that spinning while Head on Pill or Float Along, Fill Your Lungs, the title track is playing, I was like, I gotta get that. I gotta get that. So I consider this this album is a Vegemite sandwich. A Vegemite sandwich. Yeah, it's like with French bread. The opener and the closer, they're delicious. Bread is one of the best foods the humans have ever made. But the middle, the Vegemite, if you're eating straight Vegemite, you're not having a good time. And I think that the middle of this album is definitely its weakest point. I know a lot of people love the songs in the middle of here, like even if you're a Giz fan, you might not know. I'm not a man unless I have a woman. God is calling me back home. 30 past 7. Let me mend the past. Pop in my step. They're decent enough songs, and they're very much like the ones that they were starting with the surf rock and the old school classic rock sort of vibe that they return to. But to me, they don't do that much. If we're talking about my favorite among those, it's probably like 30 past 7 or Let Me Mend the Past. But I'm never listening to those unless I'm listening to the album as a whole. However, the title track, Head on Pill, a 16-minute long foray into the G chord, which classic King is one chord song, and the closer, Float Along, Fill Your Lungs, are two of my favorites that they've released. And Float Along, Fill Your Lungs is such a common album closer that they have too. They use all the time. It shows they know it's a good song too. This album was created after Stu purchased a sitar, so you could hear sitar on a lot of the tracks. They haven't brought the sitar really back, which I find interesting. I'm curious if they ever do. And then to me, this album is the first one that hints at their goated sauce. With the songs Head on Pill and Float Along, Fill Your Lungs. Those aren't songs that any normal just fun rock group could construct. Now, for the bass here, I want to talk a little bit about. I'm gonna find a safe place to put these down. So let's look at the back a little bit too. That's a nice floral picture. There's nothing too special about the card on the inside. But so this album is their first foray into odd time. If you're a fan of King Giz, you know that they deal a lot with odd time signatures and maybe things like microtones, polyrhythm. But until this point, everything that they did was really simple and in a 4/4. But Float Along, Fill Your Lungs is in 5/4. And yeah, foreshadowing exactly. Now, 5/4. That's essentially each bar is 5 beats. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There aren't too many songs that you know that do this, but there's two types of 5/4. I'm gonna talk about the other one, and we'll see. Maybe you know the other type I'm talking about. But this one, the one that they use for float along, fill your lungs, is this kind of vibe, where there's two long beats, two long notes, two short notes, and like one's 1.5. Like the long ones are 1.5, short ones are 1. 2 times 1.5 plus 2 times 1, that's 5. The other song that they have that uses this is so it's kind of that Polygondwanaland rhythm. It's what they're going. It's like do 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 do. I guess probably not. Whoa! Yes, I'm not wasting time by pulling this out. Yeah. So hypothetically, if you could do like a mashup of Polygondwanaland and Float Along, Fill Your Lungs, if you were crazy enough to want to try to do that, they know that when they play Float Along, Fill Your Lungs, that's what the audience wants. But it's the same rhythm, and that I don't even know what that one's called in 5/4, but it's uncommon. I don't hear it very much. The other one I hear a lot more often, and we'll get to that when we get to that. So, Float Along, Fill Your Lungs. Main thing, it's got Head on Pill, it's got that closing song, and it's the one that really, to me, this one's a step above even the other ones that they're doing, but also not my favorite. I'm going to be putting it at the top of B tier here. Okay, I'm glad that you did. Thanks. I wrote a lot more bass things to do, but I'm just like, there's... When the first stream that I did started and it put me in a little bubble for screencast, in which I didn't even try to do, I'm just like, I'm ditching that original plan a little bit. So let's talk about... I printed all these notes. And I made it set up so it would be one album per page. And then look at this, Oddments starting down here. When I sent it to the printer, my phone must have changed the format, and it got all messed up. I don't know if this is a good tier list. I mean, I appreciate it. I only put 4 albums on it, but I promise I know the others very well, and so I'll be giving good information along the way. So now we go to Oddments. I hope, did you like my colored pencil job? I have a black and white printer, and just like let's scribble on all these a little bit. Oddments. This doesn't do the album cover justice. I'm wondering how much of the success of the song work this time is due to just the sheer, exactly, like due to the sheer quality of this album cover. Like you're welcome to love the Float Along, Fill Your Lungs album cover, but the full color version of the Oddments one is it's immediately so much better. So this is the first bit of what I'm going to call a bits and bobs album that King Gizzard and the Wizard made, where it's extra songs that they wrote that didn't fit on any of the previous projects. This is the one that also has Vegemite, the song that I mentioned earlier. That's the King Gizzard and the Wizard meme song. Is it very good? Well, man, I'll leave that for you to decide if you listen to it. There's plenty of goofiness on this album too. Like there's like 27-second long songs. It ends goofy and it opens Luda Majaka, or however you say it. It has no vocals, but it's got horse sounds and neighs and stuff like that going on. And there weird jangly percussion. Like it's clear that it's a combination of extra songs that they had and them just also having fun, which that's one of the reasons why I love the band so much, is because of how much fun plays a role in the music that they make and play. So yeah, the other 2 Bits and Bobs albums that they have are, as your fans probably know, that they're Gumboot Soup and Omnium Gatherum, which we'll get to in time. Okay, this album, of course, is the one that has Work This Time, the #1 most listened to Spotify song. You might wonder why it's the #1 listened to. I guess you can kind of see, like, heads up, what's coming up next. You might wonder why it's the #1 most listened to King Gizzard song, but to me, it makes sense. It fits into that Spotify's favorite like rock genres, like it's neo psychedelia. It's new, chill, psychedelic songs, and if we're talking about what fits that bill out of the King Gizzard discography, it's definitely Work This Time. It's got that slow pace. You've got the boop boop boop, like right at the beginning. They got the that delay boop 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 that goes through, so it's still got their signature sound. This is so Work This Time. I gotta talk about it. It's the #1 listened to one. That's a Joey song, just so you know. So we talked about Stu. He's the main creative force behind the band, but this is one of the ones that was written by Joey. So the last time I made a tier list, I overrated Oddments, so I've got to be a little careful to not do that here. This is so this has Hot Wax, which I'm gonna mention again. That's possibly my favorite off of this. Hot Wax is just a goofy song. I think that's an Andy song, but there's some good songs on here. We've got Sleepwalker, which they started to play live recently. Sleepwalker's got to be underrated. I've never heard anyone talking about that. And I have a good time listening to Stressin', even It's Got Old. But I love playing Oluda Majaka on the bass. But so you told me that learning about that polyrhythm was I'm gonna bring up just a little bit of this thing. It's just Hot Wax. The bass line for it is very simple. It's just this power chord arpeggio. If you're writing anything, you probably use power chords all the time, but what you might not know is that if you just break it into its individual parts, you can create something that has so much personality. I know that on its own, through this tiny guitar speaker into my phone, sounds terrible, but that bass line goes hard, even though it's just one power chord. And you could do like whole like solos and ideas just with this idea of power chord arpeggios. Where you don't actually have to, like, you might think you need to have all these complicated note choices, but really sometimes just power chord arpeggios gives you all the oomph you need. And just the main notes that you need in Hot Wax. Really, and that really sent that home for me when I hear it, because that's just one chord, but I love that bass line, personally. So I'm seeing my favorite songs off of Oddments are Oluda Majaka, Hot Wax, and Vegemite. Vegemite's not one of my favorites off of it, but I appreciate Vegemite. But Oluda Majaka and Hot Wax, those are my two. And I gotta say, I love Work This Time. Right? I'm a human being. That song is crazy. Have you heard that live? When they play it live now, it's like 10 minutes long. It's got Joey just like goes. They might as well put like a halo above his head and like a spotlight, as he just does like amazing solos over it. But I think it's a good song. I've got to admit it. But I do like that you like Vegemite, to be honest. And then P's your personal pick is Oluda Majaka. What? I'm glad that everyone here is an Oluda Majaka fan. I didn't even know that anyone else had heard that song off of it. But if we're talking about where Oddments goes, I have to note that we talk about the good songs there. They're pretty good. But there's a lot of extra songs on here too. Like, I'm not listening to Crying, Pipe Dream, Homeless Man, Adidas, or Oddments outside of the context of the album ever. Not only that, like a couple of those I can't even remember how they go unless I like listen to a couple seconds. I know how all the songs go, which means I've got to put it. I'm thinking I know I'm going to be putting it above Eyes Like the Sky. I'm tempted to switch those two. It's close enough. It's close enough for now. But I'm going to be putting it below Float Along, Fill Your Lungs. I think Oddments, it's a fun listen. They got some good songs in here. As a whole, it doesn't stand up. Because there's weaker songs on it, but it's a good time. And the album art is incredible. But speaking of incredible album art, we are moving on to I'm in Your Mind, Fuzz. Now, I'm in your mind, Fuzz. Now we're entering the realm of, like, this is why we're here. It might not surprise you. I own this one. It's got the Holy Ghost version. Yes, do. I love the green that this has, and if we're talking about album covers, this is one of my favorites. You might see this and be like, that's an incredible idea for an album cover. Well, it might surprise you to see it's a video game. I don't know how this is gonna translate. Oh my god. There you go. You can see that? This is a video game. It's called Fortress. It's from like the 80s or something like that. And this album cover, you can see it's just taken like straight from it. And then he added these two dudes. Oh, Dallas Tornado, the first half of the album goes hard. You don't remember the second half? Well, that's where you're wrong, kiddo. That's where you are wrong. And I'll go into that. All due respect. Banter. But that's definitely where you're wrong. And then I saw one of the best ones, Def. Well, we'll see if maybe I'm gonna put it in the B tier. You're gonna end up hating me, okay? This is what the back of it looks like, but I mean, let's look at this incredible. Yeah, the second half is fire. I love these dudes. This is a themed album, concept album about mind control. Mostly, I don't hear how the story entirely fits in as well as it does on some of the later works, but this is where we're going to psychedelic garage rock, right? This is closer to the quintessential King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard sound. So a little bit of background about I'm in Your Mind, Fuzz. The band, as we talked about, they were super young. They made all those albums like through Oddments in a couple of years, and I guess if you're around that shows a lot of promise. And the Australian government granted them they won a grant for $50,000 to tour the United States, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. So after they got that $50,000 grant to tour the U.S., they went around the East Coast. They were living in cabins, in vans, sleeping on the ground, apparently. You're 22 or whatever, 23. I'm sure you're having the absolute time of your life. And as part of that, they also got to deal with a record label called Castleface Records. There's a castle on top of this. You think Mind Fuzz has the most powerful woo? I don't know about the most powerful woo. I'm gonna have to think about that. Because I can't help but think of Robot Stop, but that's because that's the first King Giz song I listened to. I'm gonna have to think about that. But yeah, you can see there's a castle here. I wonder if that there's a castle right here, and I'm wondering if that has anything to do with them being on Castleface Records. So Castleface Records, a lot of you might not know the OCs. I mentioned that's like one of their contemporaries, and it's one of the clearest inspirations on the sound. The whoop 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 delay effect, straight from the OCs. I mean, maybe someone did it before them too, but they were a big player here. And this album it's got a lot of that the OCs kind of sound to it. But I like it more than anything the OCs has ever released, because this album is garage rock perfection. Written, recorded on a bunch of different iPhones inside the cabins that they were touring on. I think a lot of the vocals on this, they set up 4 iPhones around a room, Stu did, and he sang into the iPhones. They mixed those sounds together. The production on early Giz stuff, it sounds insane, and I love it. You don't hear anything like that. You're like, is this an album? Yeah, it's like an album from the '60s transported into reality. I know people hate on it. On that sound. Maybe I've just endeared myself to it, but I love the old sound that they have here. Originally, this album was planned to have a pulse that went through the album. So we alluded to the first 4 songs, where that's like a suite of 4 songs. We've got I'm in Your Mind, I'm Not in Your Mind, Cellophane, I'm in Your Mind, Fuzz, where they're all the 4 songs that are interlinked. And it was intended that beat would flow through for the whole length of the song. The whole length of the album, that they keep it flowing through. But they decided to break it up instead, which, given the nature of some of the other songs, I think was a good decision. So we talked about the first four, but then it goes into empty and hot water. If you're talking about forgetting the second half, and you're like empty and hot water don't do it for me, fine. I really like empty. Does it open with a gigantic bong hit, or is that just how I hear that? Someone please confirm that for me. And then, then after that we've got hot water. If you don't like hot water is just a really fun do 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 do. It's got great melodies, and then the main lead melody of Hot Water will eventually be a guitar solo in Nonagon Infinity. Uh, so like they a lot of ideas that Kingiz pull from melodically in the future start coming in on this I'm in Your Mind Fuzz album. After Hot Water, which I really like, we've got Am I in Heaven? And this Am I in Heaven is one of the songs on the second half that you can't say is forgettable. This is an 8-minute long piece where it's just a roller coaster. It starts low, it goes high, the pacing's insane. It's so self-referential, and the way that it provides melodic ideas is so creative. It's they showed that they can make long songs with stuff like Head on Pill and even the suite at the beginning, but Am I in Heaven showcases their ability to go from 0 to 100 back to 0 and have it flow consistently and be so creative in the meantime. And then we close out with some of their best slow jams too. We've got Slow Jam 1 and Slow Jam 2, Her and I. Maybe I should try to get Her and I as one of my wedding songs, but I think that might... Well, what would a good King Gizzard wedding song be? Like that? Presumptuous? Yeah, having Am I in Heaven as a live song is incredible too. Because, I mean, there's also so much space for jamming and creativity on it as well. Speaking of live songs, Peace will know this because we were both at the second concert that they played, Satan Speeds Up, this year. Satan Speeds Up, they played it like once in like 2015 or 16, and it went terribly, and they were like, never again. But they brought it back. It's a song with flute. It's got a weird kind of not evil, but like a jaunty melody. And then evil, and then it slows down to that, like, the really delicate stew vocals, and it's just so weird and creative. I think that I'm in Your Mind Fuzz, to me, it's the perfect garage rock album. Like, if you're talking about, what's the quintessential album that came out in the 60s that was made in a garage? I'm in Your Mind Fuzz. It is my answer for that. It's so, we've got the driving motoric beats on the first four songs. That suite it's perfection to me. If I'm on a run and someone starts to pass me and I turn on the first four songs of I'm in Your Mind Fuzz, like they're toasted. There's no chance. And the creativity that they show in the back half of this album is incredible. I love every song on it, and it's definitely going into the S tier. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about the legendary bass line that is I'm in Your Mind. So we already talked about Elbow. So that, to me, there's not a lot of rhythm implied by that bass line. But this... Sorry. I get one shot and I get into my own head. Sorry. So we got the starting at that low note and then going to the root like that. It has this jilt feel to it, like you kind of go like that, which I like. And then there's a bit more rhythm put in there, and I love that. Like, it's simple, but it conveys a lot of rhythmic intention. And then, honestly, the bass on this album, I really like it because the guitars are so insane. All the soloing happening at one time, it increases it's a complex sound, and the bass line really holds it together. Like, you can listen to it and you know that it's got you, even if Stu and Joey are out there doing their own thing. It's like that. I love the feel of that starting below the root and then hammering on the root. Like, the way that there's a reason why when they play it live, like, Ambi often says, like, anyone want to have a dance party? And I think that a lot of it's because of the quality of that really simple but rhythmically interesting baseline I do. We got my cat below me here. We'll see what he's doing. I gotta get him on the camera at some point, especially if he goes in there. You're definitely gonna be seeing that. Hey, buddy. So yeah, putting that in the S tier, which means we're done with this. That one piece of tape is really holding. I'm quite pleased. Which means we go from there. And so that's now we're in. They made an S tier album, right? They're 24 years old, on the top of their game. They toured the U.S. They played tons of live shows, which means they've gotten a lot of live experience under the belts. And Stu decided that after all that, he wanted to create an album of jams. Specifically, he wanted to create an album of he just wanted to create an album of long jams. So we move on to Quarters. Quarters, which I have. This is my fiance's favorite King Gizzard album art. It's not my favorite. I have to think about what mine is, but it is pretty good. So Quarters, it's 4 songs that are 10 minutes and 10 seconds long. So the album cover divides it into 4 parts. You can see the legendary crocodile here as well. And then I gotta show that this is like a psychedelic propeller kind of look. So it's also divided into 4 pieces. I like to play this one. I can play this album when we have people over and people won't look at me. And that's not the case for a lot of King Gizzard albums that you could just turn it on and other people won't just be like, what the hell is going on? But this one, you kind of can. So we've got 4 10-minute long psychedelic, a little bit jazzy jams on this. And most notably, it opens with The River. The River is an all-time King Gizzard classic. Right now, it's probably considered their #1 live song to play live because they make it 20 minutes long with endless, beautiful jamming. And it's just, I don't need to talk about the River too much. Yeah, down, down, down. I'll be talking about it a little bit more in a second. 5/4 foreshadowing. But then after The River, we got Infinite Rise, God Is in the Rhythm, and Lonely Steel Sheet Flyer. I don't like Infinite Rise. I don't know what it is. No, I'm just turning it into part of my personality that I don't like Infinite Rise that much. God Is in the Rhythm, on the other hand, if we're talking about a song from the 60s come to today, but it's all warped and warbled and weird. It's like a 10-minute long God Is in the Rhythm, but with those tasty old school solos in there, the sound that they're doing, the melody of that song, it's incredible. Same with Lonely Steel Sheet Flyer. It's just like, that's a 10-minute long just groove that you could just settle into. Quarters is an album, you could turn on, you could be in bliss. It's just bliss. You could have a great walk to this album. I think that they did a great job. And as a concept, having just 4 songs that are all 10 minutes and 10 seconds long, is that necessary for an album? Probably not. But it's a cool idea, and when it's on the album art, it makes it more memorable. And that's another notable thing about King Gizzard and Blizzard for me. It's like an album isn't just an album. Like where it's here's a list of songs. They try to turn it all into a story. But it's the story of the album, like with the art and the song structure and stuff like that. It makes each of them also a little bit more memorable, which is notable as I'm ranking 26 different albums. I have a sheet printed for each, even though, as you saw, it's divided and so on and so forth. So I talked about unlocking a little. I wish that I could do something about that. I have another screen open to make sure that it's working, and I see that it's years and the viewer count goes to 1, but it's, So I talked about follow along, fill your lungs, follow us, talking about 101 and 5/4. But The River, on the other hand, follows what's called the clave. This is the classic that 5/4 is mainly built on, and it's this idea. And then that, perfect. I'm glad that you're back. I'm sorry about that. There's not too much I can do. I mean, comparatively, this is the only stream that I've ever put work into. I promise I'm doing my best. I'm playing live bass too. I don't know. So that's the and it's a really cool 5/4. It's been used in a lot of songs, but they use it multiple times, including a song that they often combine the river with. So. So that's this, and then there you heard wah wah as well. Uses it. It's a way that you could create this, like that's what it helps create that space where you feel like you're flowing down a river, the way that it rocks you back and forth. And personally, my favorite part about the song "The River" is the switch up at the very end. I love the whole thing, but at the very end of the song, they do a rhythmic switch up. King Gizzard does that a lot, where they switch from 5/4 to 4/4. And the Andy goes crazy on the harmonica, and they've got the guitar solo, like the doom, like that thing going on. And it recontextualizes everything you heard beforehand, and gives it you a new kind of banger light to listen to it through. I think that The River is one of their best songs that they made, both the original recording and especially whenever they play it live. I love it. And then I do really, really enjoy God Is in the Rhythm and Lonely Steel Sheet Flyer. And combined, I think that this is a great album. I'm going to, for my own sake, future sake, I'm going to be putting it at the top of B for now, above Float Along Fill Your Lungs. Maybe it belongs in A, but things are going to get crowded, okay? Look at it, how many we've got to go. Get through. I'm glad that I planned for this to take a while. We're already an hour in. And, oh no, what happened to the order of my sheets? All my album sheets are in the wrong order. It's gonna be a mess. I got that. Do you see all this paper that I have lined up behind here now too? So now we're moving on to Paper Mâché Dream Balloon. After Quarters, they decided to come out with an album that was all, this is an acoustic album. No electric guitars on it, which I think makes it stand out as part of the King Gizzard discography. We've got, like the songs here, there's no extended jams either. They're all very deliberate, reasonably short songs as well. This one, it took a lot longer for it to grow on me. I started with Nonagon Infinity. I'll come back to that when we get to it, but because of that, like this sound was different, and I didn't get what it was going for as much. But as I continued to listen to it, I started paying attention to the lyrics more. Bone and Dirt, yeah, I'm going to be talking about, like Dirt in particular. Like the lyrics on that, I think are great. It's not their strongest lyrical album, but to me this is almost, I don't have the right word for it. It's almost like their edgy lyrical album. They're a lot of the lyrics are about, like, they're talking about insecurities and like their own insecurities and like problems that they see in the world, and in this like old 60s acoustic folk style context, it makes for a more moving listen the more that I paid attention to it. Yeah, then you talked about Bone and Dirt. Those are my 3 and 4. You could probably, it doesn't take too much to be able to guess my 2 favorite songs off of Paper Mâché Dream Balloon, being Trapdoor and Sense, both of which I love both of those songs, especially Trapdoor. Trapdoor gets into that early King Gizzard idea of you're just hitting that one chord and you're saying the name of the song over and over and you're having a great time. And as much as I love the complex stuff, a lot of times that's what it's all about. You and the boys shouting Trapdoor over and over. It's got a goofy music video too, if you haven't seen it, I recommend it. Yes, Trapdoor. Well, I'm glad that I could remind you about Trapdoor then. So, one interesting thing about Paper Mache Dream Balloon, because if you're listening to the songs like individually, you might not know this, but the final song at the end of it is a really cool medley of every song that came before it, all played at once. Stu's got it, like playing all the lead lines on a flute, and it makes for a really interesting and compelling closer. Giz have a like an uncanny ability to tie together a lot of their melodic ideas. Uh, to tie in a lot of their melodic ideas in an album, like into other parts of the song. But this one, just having the closer that was all the songs put together, it's a great time. There's other songs on here, like I know that they're not in the top four that I mentioned, but I personally also love the bitter boogie, the bitter boogie. I mean, I have a fun time. NGRI Bloodstain. You could hear they have a piano and they're just breaking it. They're like, we bought a piano just to destroy it for this one song, NGRI Bloodstain. And if you listen to it, you'll know what I'm saying. It sounds like that thing's gonna like break apart. But this album for me, despite it having those meaningful lyrics and a great soundscape, I find that the second half of it is a little bit weaker. I don't want to. I love Cookie. I think that Time Equals Fate is not. It's not a song for me. Time is Money is fine. I do really like most of what I like, but in the end, like if we're talking about the back half of something like I'm in Your Mind, Fuzz, like that, it creates a whole different world that you can explore. It's a lesser extension of what came beforehand. So for now, I'm going to put Paper Mache Dream Balloon at the top, B tier above Quarters. I know. I'm leaving it so empty up there. I will not be leaving it too empty for long. Why will I not be leaving that area above empty for long? Well, you know what's next. It's Nonagon Infinity. So Nonagon Infinity. I do own this one. I got this, it was like a $23 off of Amazon. Now the thing is, people say like the sound of Nonagon Infinity, it sounds like just bit rate garbage. But this one that I got off of Amazon is just like it's a piece of plastic and it sounds like garbage, and it's almost like they got away with it. People don't know. I know because I've listened to Nonagon Infinity like a million times, but not everyone knows. So Nonagon Infinity came out. Oh, well, I guess for my background, yeah, I'm glad that you could hear the opening. I love Robot Stop, right? 2016. I'm in college in 2016, and at that point in time, I started my music listening journey as like I was like in college. I was an Arctic Monkeys guy who liked Led Zeppelin. You could simplify me down to that MO, and I was figuring out like I was finding websites like Rate Your Music and reviewers like unfortunately Pitchfork, and then also like Anthony Fantano. And around that time was when Nonagon Infinity came out. So I was looking at like rock charts because I was discovering Ty Segall and the OCs, yeah, were part of my heavy listening, and I found Nonagon Infinity. I was not ready for what it came like for what this album brought, but you go in and you're just it's nonstop the first time you listen to it. There's no breaks on this thing. It's jumping around like the rhythms. You're finding difficult where to grab on, and then they're just pummeling you with these motifs that they're hitting you with over and over. Like the first listen of Nonagon Infinity, not knowing the band, is absolutely exhilarating because you don't know where it's going. You don't know what it's doing. It sounds like yeah, very similar to the other albums. Just like, is this an album like from the '60s? That they recorded onto some tape that some kid grabbed like a magnifying glass and like held it up to the sun to like melt pieces of it or something. Like what's going on with the sound of this thing? But to me, it makes it so much more memorable because of it. So I know that for Nonagon Infinity, they're King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard, obviously, they don't work on albums incredibly long. If they're releasing 5 albums in a year, they get the ideas and they're just like, we want to get this out, we want to move on to the next thing. Nonagon Infinity is kind of the exception to that. They worked on Nonagon Infinity for the better part of a year because they wanted to make sure that it was perfect. And what that did is it led to a lot of tension within the band and a lot of stress. So as you know, they didn't release an album for 5 years after this came out. But I think that that's interesting. That you hear about bands going through tension from albums like what was it? From The Wall for Pink Floyd. When they made The Wall, it was about the stress that they were all put into, and then after they made The Wall, the band kind of broke up afterwards. I think that Nonagon Infinity, the way that they were able to get through it and how they dealt with it, which we'll talk through in the next year of music, it shows the strength of having, for not only being in a band, but being six, I guess at this time seven friends who are working together to try to make music and really play together. I like that. Also, just this one comes with a fun portrait of them. I saw your message, by the way. I'm gonna look at that in a second. I think it also comes with a poster. It's got cool art. I don't know. Like I said, this Amazon one, it sounds terrible. It does not sound like the album is supposed to sound. But it was $23, and it looks cool. So you discovered the band through the psychedelic rock playlist on Apple Music. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad that they had that and not just work this time. Yeah, and then also just getting Robot Stop and nothing else, that's tricky because the rest of the album affirms the sounds made in Robot Stop. But Robot Stop is my favorite song. It's got to be my favorite song off of Nonagon Infinity. I love it, especially now that I know the hot water melodies, the solo in it, and the sounds of it. The music video for Robot Stop is such a fun watch. This is also the album where the Gizzverse comes into play. If you're not familiar, the Gizzverse is what I alluded to, where every album is part of this grand story. And if you're familiar with Robot Stop, there's lyrics that are the only difference is robot influence. And there's albums later on where there's a man becomes a soy mutant mutt machine, or Boogeyman Sam, who eventually Boogies, where there's a man who's turned from man into machine. And I think Robot Stop is that guy kind of singing. Also, if we're talking about album covers, if we're looking at this album cover, you could see the mountain. I'm sure that you've seen this, but just in case. Here's the same castle again. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. So we're starting to bring in that narrative in full. And then like I mentioned, they bring in that hot water melody back. There's so much more to the Gizzverse that I can cover. That's I'm more of a fan of the musical ideas rather than paying attention to the story of it. For years, I couldn't understand a single word that any Giz song was saying. That's not why I was listening to them at the start. But yeah, so the pummeling of the repetitive motifs, I love. You remember, it's so memorable after you listen to it once. And then the song now this one, yeah, it is musically referenced in half the albums as well. That's true. My favorite part about Nonagon Infinity is the song transitions that they were able to create throughout it. I remember the feeling that I had listening to the transition between Robot Stop and Big Fig Wasp, because I still have it the same time today. It's one of my favorite moments in music, just how they were able to seamlessly transition between the songs. The infinite part at the end is not even my favorite, but just the way that they're able to tie all these different ideas together into one cohesive album is brilliant, and I think that that's shown the best on Nonagon Infinity. Personally, I was gonna do some stuff with the bass on this one. I'm gonna hold off on that. Okay, I'm getting a little sweaty. I've got backup Giz shirts to change to. Once I sweat through this one, when I start playing the bass and I get nervous, it's fair enough. They are exactly. They're just brilliant and smooth. Even the one to Mr. Beat from People Vultures. Mr. Beat is one of the weaker songs on the album for me, but that transition into that simple motor groove in itself, I can think about, like, I love that one too. So on here we got Robot Stop into Big Fig Wasp into Gamma Knife. Gamma Knife is that's it's like just a classic banger. It's gotta always go back. That's like the trapdoor of this one, where that's Gamma where they're able to just play one note, but it's able to hit as part of this complex album. This one, it's got crazy time signatures all over it. They're using 11, they're using 7, they're using 9, and that's one of the reasons why it took them so long to tie it all together, is because of the complexity of what they're doing here. So yeah, we got People Vultures, and we go into Mr. Beat, Evil Death Roll, Invisible Face, Wah Wah, Road Train. A lot of these are memorable songs from the band too. Everyone's talked about Nonagon Infinity enough. I think that we've talked about it enough here. I think that I put it, we all know where it's going. The question is, where is it going to end up? So right now, I'll put it at the top of Fuzz. I'll put it above I'm in Your Mind, Fuzz. That's actually kind of a little hard for me, even if it's not hard for you. I really love Mind Fuzz, but Nonagon Infinity is one of the reasons why a lot of us know who King Gizzard are today. That's where a lot of people found them, was thanks to this brilliant album that they worked on. So, as I mentioned, they made Nonagon Infinity, and it took them about part of a year and led to a lot of tensions within the band. So normally bands would break up or there'd be arguments or stuff like that. But instead of that, the band decided, among a bunch of touring, they do an incredible amount of live shows, which is, I think, part of the reason why they're able to create so well, is because of how much they play. But they responded to that tension by deciding that they're going to come out with 5 albums in the year 27 years old or so. The band. Just for perspective, I'm 27 myself. I'm not releasing 5 albums this year. But I'm only one guy. Maybe that's part of it. So the first album that they made in this, another very normal album. The second album that I ever heard from them. Oh, what am I doing? I gotta replace it up here first. Hey. And my sheets are all out of order. Flying Microtonal Banana. The first album that they released out of 2017 is Flying Microtonal Banana. Wow. So Flying Microtonal Banana, story behind it is Stu gets this thing called a baglama. Let me, I could probably look it up, to be honest, and show you what it looks like. Baglama. Yeah, you can see enough of what they look like. So a baglama, it's a Turkish folk instrument, and the whole idea of it is it's microtonal. It has notes that are between notes that we know for our normal Western music. And Stu, he really liked the sound that created. They were listening to a lot of Anatolian rock at that time. One band that I listen to now, they weren't around back then, that is that Anatolian kind of rock sound, they're called Altın Gun. They have a couple KEXP, they've been on KEXP a couple times too, where they put on a good performance, but it's this microtonal Eastern sound. It's very good, and Stu wanted to replicate that. I mean, he wanted to create songs with that, so he had a baglama, but as part of that, he worked with a local guitar creator to create this thing called the Flying Microtonal Banana. You can see it a little bit there. I've got this one. So this is the Flying Microtonal Banana. You can see him pull this out at a live show, and everyone freaks out. And the Flying Microtonal Banana has those microtonal frets. So Stu wrote a whole album with the baglama, but he threw it out instead once they got the electric guitars. Fair enough. That's more of their wheelhouse. And then they wrote a new series of songs with those microtones. So Stu was the only one who had a real microtonal instrument here. Like Joey, I forget if this is right. He had a guitar, he bought like a really cheap guitar, put a piece of tape on it and called it Dickhead, if I remember right. and he just like almost by hand added frets to it. I know Lukey, the bassist, he had stick-on frets that would, yeah, it is such a goofy style, but I love it too. It's just such a different vibe. This thing down here I like, and there's something iconic about the gas mask dude here that I love it as well. Got the back, not too much, but I love the highlighter yellow it comes with. Not banana color, but still pretty slick. But then Joey had stick-on frets for songs like the beginning of Nuclear Fusion, where it's ascending a bunch of microtones. You do that, but the stick-on frets they're not regular frets. They like move around, so I'm sure that some of the Nuclear Fusions didn't sound as good as some of the other Nuclear Fusions. So when they were making this album, they don't talk about this, but like you're very limited by those instrumental restrictions. Not only that, but we have all of our harmonic understanding and music theory is based around the normal note system. If we're dealing with these microtones, there's no you can't look up microtonal chord progressions on Google. If you type in chord progressions on Google, there's a billion of them. You could watch 500 YouTube videos. They didn't have any harmonic stuff to pull from. So as a result, I'm trying to lead into when I'm going to place this maybe not where you want it to be. As a result of that, a lot of the songs are simpler than other music that they make. A lot of it's intentional, like Rattlesnake. They explicitly wanted to put as few microtones in it as possible to help ease you in for the rest of the album. But a lot of the other songs on there, they don't develop harmonically. It's just like a series of riffs that they go through. That being said, with those limitations, they were able to write some really creative and memorable songs out of it. So, let's get rid of that. So to get into a little bit of what I mean by that, Rattlesnake it's just it's just that the whole time. We've got outside of the main riff, like Nuclear Fusion. That's all the Nuclear Fusion is. It's a Sleep Drifter. Almost the whole time it's going like. That's. Billabong Valley is just alternating between two notes. A lot of the songs they're not complex, but the songwriting that they do is quite creative. Now, there's a couple on here that I have a problem with, like Open Water. We all love Rattlesnake. Rattlesnake is 7 minutes and 30 seconds long. 7 minutes and 50 seconds long. Barely shorter than it is Open Water, which is a great drum idea from Cavs. And then it's just one note being played over and over on a high guitar string, and it just goes on too long. It goes on too long for me. And I love me some Billabong Valley. I think Sleep Drifter is a great song, but Anoxia. If we're talking about the all-time great Giz albums, a lot of the songs don't stand up. Yeah, for 1/3 of its runtime, I absolutely love it. Yeah, the drums at the beginning, that loop, it's incredible. It's the best Cavs drum beat up to this point from the band, at least to me. But yeah, so it's got some of the most easily memorable tracks, but the simplicity of a lot of the music and so on means that this album it's not as brilliant to me as it is for others. I don't remember when it came out, and I was on Rate Your Music. One of the top comments that I saw was just I love this microtonal idea, but I wish a better band would do it. And that made me mad. It made me mad that I saw that. But let me tell you, they said that for Flying Microtonal Banana after all that came out beforehand, but they will not be saying that again for the future microtonal albums that we will talk about, because the complaints that I had about the simplicity of they'll create a lot of memorable songs. The simplicity of the songs on here will not carry forward for future microtonal albums. So And that being said, I know that I was giving a preamble. It's just because I know where some of the future albums are going to go. Flying Microtonal Banana obviously goes in the A tier, though. Like, this is an incredible album. This is one that my fiance will turn it on. Well, hey, we're going to have people over once, and she's just like, hey, why don't you turn on Flying Microtonal Banana? And just like, they're going to be listening to the title track. Like, what are we doing here? I turned it on anyways, though. All right. Oh, if we're talking about favorite songs off of Flying Microtonal Banana, I think that mine's got to be Nuclear Fusion. Rattlesnake's obviously a close second, but I love Nuclear Fusion. That ascending bass line is so fun. The chorus is fun. That's another Joey song as well. So going off of that, from there, album 2 out of their 2017 release is Murder of the Universe. Let me find the... You gotta remember, I have this whole shtick, all these papers. Look at, I did all this drawing too. I gotta make sure that I put these up here. Murder of the Universe. No, reminiscent of Eyes Like the Sky. This is a very normal album. Very normal album. It's like it's an audiobook detailing like a demon taking over a human, a war between two beings that kills a bunch of people, and at the end, just the death of the entire universe. You know, my creature has no love for me. Is that a Mars for the Rich line? I'm sorry. I don't actually know what you're talking about with my creature has no love for me. That's embarrassing. So let's look at if we're talking about album art in the vinyl, I think I gotta recommend Murder of the Universe a lot. Like, first off, you could see this is the same castle as we saw before with Nonagon Infinity and I'm in Your Mind Fuzz, but obviously being overrun with vomit. You can see like a hand coming out and it's all going down. I think that like this here, you see like the head. It's one of the Mind Fuzz dudes in there. Not only that, that's just the front. Like, the back of this album's so cool. Like, here's the poem for the title track, Murder of the Universe. If I open it up, I got it is perfect for Halloween. Might be too spooky for some people. Like, you might be like, some songs are spooky, but they're gonna hear like the 11/4 into 13/4 into 7/4 on the altered suite, and they're gonna be like, "What the hell? You gotta get me out of here." You got the nice vomit splatter on here too. This is just a bunch of spitting puke. And then my favorite thing that comes with Murder of the Universe is that it comes with a lyric book, which has lyrics for all the songs, and like the different voices have different fonts and font sizes, and the art in the background is reminiscent of what's going on in the story. I didn't know that it would be coming with it, but I think that was it's a great touch. Murder of the Universe is not the most accessible King Gizzard and the Wizard album. It's intentionally rough around the edges, and like Stu noted that he didn't expect that a lot of people would enjoy it at first, that it would receive mixed reviews, which is fair. If you look up like the rate your music ratings, it's not one of the higher reviewed albums, and it's brutal. It's divided into 3 portions. There's the Altered Beast suite, which is the first one. The first 2 are narrated by Leah Senior. She comes back for a couple other Giz things, and she's also a good Australian folk artist in her own right. In some live shows recently, she opened for Giz and then came on to do some of the songs from Murder of the Universe, and you can see she's putting like a lot of sass and stank into the narration that she didn't put on the original album track. So I recommend. She's good. I'm a fan of her. So yeah, we got the Altered Beast suite, which is she's the Altered Beast. Stu is a man who's being swayed to be absorbed by the Altered Beast, and they've got this back and forth between just 4 Altered Beast songs, which just go through a series of different crazy time signatures and guitar parts and so on. There's a KEXP session where they play through all these in a row, and I highly recommend that because you can see they're also pretty difficult pieces of music. And in the middle, we have the most memorable, I think, but my least favorite of the three suites. We've got the Lord of Lightning versus the Balrog. Lord of Lightning being the lead single. And like the lead song off of the album. Just a story narrated by Lee Senior about the Lord of Lightning and the Balrog who comes to terrorize the town. Lord of Lightning shifts his gaze and electricity and, so on and so forth. And then the final one, the final section, is the Murder of the Universe, narrated instead by Hunjumi, which is that robot voice. And it's definitely my favorite of the three sections. It's full of Gizzard's details, and it's also got, to me, it's got the bangers of the album on it. Like, you might Vomit Coffin, Digital Black. They're simpler songs, but you kind of get that, like, the no feature and so on. I know that Digital Black does go. The way that I thought about, like, human augmentation and so on, it made me think of, like, in the context of music. Like, the way that we feel music is definitely entirely with the kinesthetics of our body, and if we choose to replace parts with digital parts, then that part of it'll feel back. And so when I heard that in 2017, I'm like, I didn't think about it that way before. Well, that's the nerdy thing. I didn't think of that. Noted that. Maybe I should have. Then I would have worded it better. But yeah, got plenty of Gizzard's details here. This is like almost one of the Bibles of the Gizzverse. So we got one of my favorite just bass lines in general is the one off the title track at the end. It's this. Like that looping over and over. It's got that just the nasty tone that Lukey has, and it definitely it fits so well with what they're going for there. But another thing that they do on this album that if you're ever writing your own music, I recommend you try to do. Like in the middle of Lord of Lightning, you could hear all the instruments at one time doing like. The idea being the instruments are doubling what the vocalist is doing. If you listen to Stu, almost all the time, he's actually just doubling what he's singing with his guitar. And what that does is it creates significantly more memorable motifs and ideas. You love Lord of Lightning. The Lord of Lightning is the first song that clicked with me off of the album. For sure. The main riff of Lord of Lightning is. It's just mostly do 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 do, but still. What I'm getting at there is it's great to like listen for when they do it, and then know that if you ever want to make your own music, you could do it as well, where you double with your instruments what you're doing lyrically and melodically, and it makes it a lot more memorable. Like everyone knows that because Stu sings it, because of like the whole band doubling him behind it. I think that's a great addition. Every time I listen to Murder of the Universe, climb up my list a little bit more. It's A tier, and I'm putting it above Flying Microtonal Banana. I'm trying to. I don't actually. I guess I'll leave it there. An hour and a half in. Still in the 2017 albums. Okay. Coming off of the most brutal album that they've released yet. We've got not the most brutal album that they've ever released. We've got Sketches of Brunswick East. And you already know I've got this one. This, when I asked about my fiance's favorite album covers, this and another one that will be coming up soon were her number 2. They were tied. So it's not quite like the psychedelic eyeball that I had for the Float Along Fill Your Lungs, but it still has that kind of cool eyeball pattern. I love the album art of it. It's got like that old like Monty Python thing you can see. like them hanging out of little windows and so on. So Sketches of Brunswick East, 2017 album, is a collaboration with a band called Mild High Club. Mostly a guy, Alex Breton, out of Chicago. I think he lives in LA now, but he's like a jazz pop artist. On their earliest KEXP session, you could see Stu wearing a Mild High Club shirt, singing "Cellophane" and "I'm in Your Mind." So you could see like, oh, like he was a fan for a while. So I bet that he was looking forward to doing this Sketches of Brunswick East collab. I recommend listening to Mild High Club as well. I think did he work with Mac DeMarco? He might have worked with Mac DeMarco. I can't remember. That wasn't part of my research here. So we're talking a little bit more jazzy. It's still rock. It's still psychedelic. Like it's Giz. So he's got a psychedelic rock vibe, but it's delving a lot more into jazz here, like jazzy ideas. And to me, this has the most delicate, intricate soundscapes that they've created so far in this career. I can spoil. I can listen to this album on loop, from the sounds and vibes that they were able to create with the keys and the drums on this sound so good. This is also my go-to album when I do have company over. I know that I mentioned Quarters, but this one even more so, I think works. It's got a little bit more of a dinner party vibe going on. I'm glad that you start getting into this album. As you've seen, I play the bass. If you are a fan of bass at all, Sketches of Brunswick East is the best, at least up to this point. I think that they really picked it up with what's going there. This album's also just disgustingly underrated. I think it's almost as it's rated almost the same as like Oddments on Rate Your Music. It's a freaking sin. This album it's a gem. If you're gonna listen to The Spider in Me or like Tezita and be like, this album's kind of mid, you're crazy. So my favorite song off this is probably Countdown, but it's hard to pick. I like to listen to the whole thing. But for this album, I wanted to talk about the idea of vamping and also diminished chords. So Giz love to vamp, which is where you have just two chords and you go back and forth between the two. It's like it's not, they didn't invent it, right? Like that's a classic funk. Most Pink Floyd songs are vamping between two chords. But the reason why a lot of these songs sound a little like weird and interesting is because they're vamping between like a minor chord and what's called a diminished chord. So let me. So that's like the main bass line to Tezita. And that's going between this minor chord and then there's a diminished chord where there's a lot of dissonance intentionally in there. And then Stu does this, he has this great bass thing that he likes to write where it's just climbing these things called tritones. That's what people used to call the devil in music. That's not, that was a lie. But it's very dissonant and the way that they're able to include that in part of these songs like Tezita, which isn't a dissonant song. It's got a lot of highs, like emotionally positive moments, but they're able to use that dissonance and vamp between the normal chord and the weird chord in a way that just creates these incredible soundscapes. Same with like the book. That's just like one chord, but they're just changing it from like a minor chord into this nasty chord, alternating between the two. That's kind of why it has that like Halloween-y, bopping feel to it. Sketches of Brunswick East is a great show as to how they're able to use dissonance to create these just memorable melodies, right? If you hear a pop artist trying to incorporate jazz, nothing sounds like Tezita or the book because they're not really laying into the weird sound textures that are created from those extended notes. Yeah, incredibly. This album also has an incredible smart usage of effects to build atmosphere. Yeah, absolutely. There's no way to listen to it without vibing. If you heard the synth solo at the end of Tezita that Joey's putting on there, it's incredible. I think a lot of that we have to give credit to like the inspiration from Al Breton as well, because he creates a lot of interesting soundscapes on his own albums. But this one, I'm gonna probably call a couple of these this, but this is like the quintessential vibe album that I think that they've made. A lot of the songs on here, if we're talking, like if you're talking about Sketches of Brunswick East 1, 2, and 3, like I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't remember how those all go. And like The Journey to Shell isn't my favorite song that they've ever made, but the vibe that they were able to create on this album is incredible. Like I said, it's a gem. I can loop it over and over. Like The Spider in Me is a fantastic song. I love Countdown. I can play all of these on here. Like You Can Be Your Silhouette. People are putting this at the bottom of their tier list. It's got You Can Be Your Silhouette. It's got Dusk to Dawn on Lygon Street. People are putting this at the bottom of their tier list. Come on. So yeah, I'm gonna be putting Sketches of Brunswick East even above Murder of the Universe. You could see something happened after, like, they made Nonagon Infinity. They toured it, and I know that back then they had sets that were tight. Every note was planned, which is very different than how it is now. But like they'd be doing the same songs. I don't know what happened, but something really started to click in 2017, and they were able to create all these diverse and compelling albums, which brings us to, speaking about diverse and compelling, that brings us to Polygondwanaland. You already know about this one. If we're talking about my favorite album art, I don't know why I said I don't know. It's got to be this. Every inch of this album has detail. There's a dude in a prison. There's like all these song titles. There's like lyrics printed all over. It's so small. There's the way that it plays with your perspective as well. Like there's art. There's topography. Well, no, I'm gonna be putting it in. Yeah, it's gonna be up there. Don't you worry. But like it's even playing with your perspective and so on. I think that Jason Galea put a lot of work into this album because he knew he heard it first. Let's put it that way. The back, decently cool. And then there is no fourth color on this album. I think it's just a repeat of the red, but this is a nice tricolor variant. I love spinning this one. This one is so we got a lot of like garage rock and stuff. This is a progressive space rock album. Comparatively to their other rock efforts, there's significantly less effects on here. It's because it's a lot more technical. They're intentionally making it so like all the notes that they're playing are heard, and a lot of that is like they're doing stuff that they weren't doing before. We got this thing is full of crazy polyrhythms. I got all these sheets back here. I'm sorry. I gotta be ready to share some stuff. It's full of crazy polyrhythms and different ideas, like just different difficult things where like you need to hear those details about how the bass is interacting with the vocals, given that they're not playing in the same time signature. The drums have to tie it all together. This album, Polygondwanaland, was co-written by the drummer, Calves, which is funny because this is like an album that they released. I can't get enough of it either. This is an album that they released for free. You can download the masters of all the songs online if you want right now, and you can do whatever you want with them. So it's funny to imagine Kaz being like, of course, the one that I helped co-write is the one that gets written for free. But yeah, with all the complex polyrhythms, they definitely worked endlessly with Calves to get this working and put together. So there's just in case you don't know who's writing the different songs, there's the Horology trilogy on here, which is Inner Cell, Into Loyalty, Into Horology. That was also written by Joey. Joey, what I've been calling the number 2 guy. So like when Stu's not writing, it's not like Stu's the only guy who can write songs. Like they've all got songwriting abilities, and even if this isn't like one thing that you have to acknowledge about Polygondwanaland is it has 2 different live suites which is Crumbling Castle into the Fourth Color and the Horology Suite. And not a lot of their albums have 2 extended things that you play from it, which is another testament to this album. Like for me, it's got my. I know that I talked about the soundscapes of sketches, but I'm more of a rock fan, anyways. The soundscapes on Polygondwanaland are my favorite. I jokingly said like it Polygondwanaland makes me feel more like I'm more in space than Starfield. Like songs like Searching make me feel more like I'm landing on a deserted planet than Starfield. It's like they're able to be so evocative. And then lyrically, this is my favorite album of theirs lyrically up to this point. There's a ton of stuff that ties into Gizzard, even that ties into Flying Microtonal Banana on here, but like the leaves of like Loyalty, very memorable. Like during the do dum 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 dum. I've got to. I'd be remiss not to talk about the opening song, Crumbling Castle, as well. Crumbling Castle, often considered is often considered like arguably their best. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but it's a 10-minute long epic. I'm stalling. Still stalling. I want to bring over something to show you. This is a map of all the different time signatures used on Polygondwanaland by on Crumbling Castle, just the song Crumbling Castle by all the different instruments that Stu had to write and put together. See, like for these different sections, it's got the drums, percussion, bass, lead guitar, vocals, and when they're a different color, that means that they're also playing in the different time signature at the same time. So like it's opening, vocals are at 6/8, drums and bass are at 7/8. And throughout, like there are times when there's 3 different time signatures being played at the same time. I don't know how they constructed Crumbling Castle. All I know is that it sounds incredible, and that's what's most important. So sometimes it's easy to overvalue crazy stuff like this and just be like, this is what makes a song good, because I think there's like a lot of Tool songs that do a lot of crazy time signature stuff but they don't hit as hard as some of their better pieces, like I Know the Pieces Fit. What's that song called? I Know the Pieces Fit. And other big ones that they have, because it just doesn't tie together as well. Crumbling Castle, all of this ties together perfectly into just a masterful work. I don't know. I won't know how they made it. I'll never know. But I'm going to keep listening to it, that's for sure. Can you hear Dynamite playing in the background? I hope you can. It's pretty funny. Just putting Polygondwanaland back up here. Oh yeah, so I talked about those. Let's just go over the songs here a little bit. Obviously, yeah, we got Crumbling Castle into Polygondwanaland. I played the bass drum earlier, so it tones it down, but it's the vibe of Polygondwanaland and the castle in the air really sets you into the weird time signature, but like space that you could settle into before nailing you with Deserted Dunes, Welcome Weary Feet. The unbelievably fast bass line, the little one at the end, if you listen back to it, is one of my favorites. I'm not going to vocalize it. I don't have a good enough ear to do that well. But after Deserted Dunes, we go into that Horology trilogy, which are 3 of the, like, alone 3 of some of my favorites that they've made, but together they create quite the sonic journey into Tetrachromacy, Searching, and then at the end, the Fourth Color, which is a fantastic closer. So one thing that I want to talk about with Polygondwanaland is the idea of a polyrhythm. Now, they didn't use a 3/4 polyrhythm when they were doing it, but that's what we're going to talk about here. Look at. Just looking at all these sheets of paper, like, what's going on? So, if you at home would like to try to do this with me, I have a circle and a square, orange and red, and each of these are going to correspond with a different hand. So what this is a 3/4 polyrhythm is the idea that you're playing both, like you're playing like a 3/4 time signature and a 4/4 time signature at the same time. So when it's a square, I'm going to use one hand, and when it's a circle, I'm going to use the other hand. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you get this weird composite rhythm that comes out from it. And that's what, when I was showing that picture of all the different time signatures that they have, that's kind of what they're playing with. Like the fourth color at the end, they have like a 7 polymeter built inside of another 7 with the locals, which is what gives it, I mean, you're already playing in 7, and then there's a polyrhythm. That's what gives that crazy feel. It's fantastic for a closer. Polygondwanaland, it's not the most King Giz album to me, but it's at least the best so far. The album is incredible. Some people have called it the best album of all time. I'm not gonna. Do I agree? But it's. I think it's better than Nonagon Infinity personally. Lyrically, the songwriting, how it all ties together, the vibe of the whole thing. I can't get enough of it. After that, we've got. You agree? This one person. It's good enough. I am almost 2 hours in. Oh no. Gumboot Soup. This is the second album in the Bits and Bobs trilogy, as I called it. The first one being Oddments, and we're going to get to Omnium Gatherum in 3 hours. This was released literally, so 2017, the 5 album release here. This was released on December 31st, the last album that they released, cutting it in right under the wire. Gumboot Soup. Theoretically, it's songs that didn't fit onto the other albums, but I think that that's a dismissive way to look at it, and it's definitely how I looked at it the first time I heard Gumboot Soup. It's just like, oh, this is just a nice collection of songs that they didn't add. But I think that the ones that they put on here, because they weren't in the context of a greater album, they were able to refine them into some of the most well-written songs that they've released. So like we've got The Beginner's Luck is a masterfully written pop song. It goes through one chord change, tells a great story. But outside of that, we've got songs of completely different vibes that are just good, if not better, like Muddy Water. I love The Great Chain of Being on here too. They like the vibes on it are so. The song vibes can differ so dramatically, but they also cohese as a whole, as like this crazy jukebox that you're just turned on. You don't know where it's going or what you're doing. The first Cookie song he made that I love is on here. It's Down the Sink is what it's called. I'm gonna save. I gotta save the bass. You gotta save the time. I'm gonna get too hungry if I go to it. I was gonna play it and I was gonna talk about the Dorian mode. We'll talk about Dorian a little bit later. But on here, it's great pop songwriting, and the songs are crafted. They're also different. We're looking on here, like Superposition and Greenhouse Heat Death on the same album seems wild, but I love every song off of this album. I think is really good, and I think that Gumboot Soup is highly underrated. This is the other album that my fiance loves the design of. She made the be right back sign in case I needed to piss, and as you can see, she put the Gumboot Soup note on it. So I'm looking forward to doing that when I change out of my unbelievably sweaty shirt into a different shirt to make unbelievably sweaty. And if we're looking at the vinyl here, it's got this cool. I love the combination of these two. The way that the orange, red, and black fits in with the album cover is really nice. It's got this like cardboard thing going on. Gumboot Soup, you can see with like the album cover and a lot of the songs on here, they're starting to dig a little bit more into the themes of climate change with a lot of the songs that they're writing and the albums that they're making, which is going to continue to be a main theme of them. And they talked about it in the past, like Sense off of Paper Mâché Dream Balloons about that too. But it starts to become more at the forefront with Gumboot Soup. Sorry, I haven't been talking into the mic at all. I've got to move Gumboot Soup. I think I'm going to put it... Yeah, I think that Gumboot Soup is really pretty. Now the question is it better than Murder of the Universe? And I think that the answer is, for right now, I gotta keep moving. It is a great variety album. I go on there sometimes. I want to just listen to a couple songs off of it. Sometimes I want to listen to the whole thing. The last Oasis on there. It seems like, like last Oasis, I'm Sleeping In. They've got impeccable chill vibes. Superposition. That's just a weird song. They tune up the lowest string on the bass. They tune it up to an F. And then have that drone, which is strange. Weird songs like Barefoot Desert, where Cookie's playing. Sometimes he plays bass. He has a distinctive style. For time reasons, I'm not going to go into it, but he's playing like a fretless bass, and he's really playing around with the fretless of it. I recommend listening to the bass on Barefoot Desert. The bass on this album actually is also incredible. But it's the fantastic variety and different directions that they go. Given that it's a bits and bobs album, it's impressive. It's one of the most underrated. Gumboot Soup, Sketches of Brunswick East, and another album that we'll get to. I'm going to put as the trilogy of the three most underrated King Gizzard and the Wizard albums. I love Gumboot Soup. So after Gumboot Soup, the boys, I feel that today. They were a little tired, which I think is fair. Right, they went through the tumultuous period of trying to write Nonagon Infinity. They were touring all these all the time. They wrote and released 5 albums in 1 year. They deserve a little break. They come back 2 years later with Fishing for Fishies. Now, personally, I had been listening to them over this period of time. I came back for Fishing for Fishies. At this point, I was definitely still just like a music reviewer reader. If you were a fan of King Gizzard at this time, you are probably aware that they had an album, that this album on Pitchfork got a 4.8 out of 10. It was just completely just shit on for being bad. And I know that the first time I listened to it, I definitely dismissed it as well. Fishing for Fishies is kind of it's a boogie rock vibe, and it was intended to be their first yin-yang album. That yin-yang concept is something that they come back to later on, but this is the return after 2 years of being off. They've got classic rock boogie sound is what they're going for, and I think that the instrumentation on this album is fun. It's fun. The way that they're playing together is interesting. Before their previous albums, everything was clearly calculated. There's a lot more of a jam feel on Fishing for Fishies. And what I say is this album is their road trip album, the best road trip album. If you're going on a drive and you need one album to put in, I think this one fits really well. Maybe the title track "Fishing for Fishies" doesn't fit that road trip vibe as well, but Boogeyman Sam Birdsong, Plastic Boogie, Real's Not Real, This Thing, those are great driving songs, all one after another. This is also, it's a lot heavier into explaining the Gizverse than you might anticipate. That, of course, is Huntumi in the flesh right there. And we've also got this guy, Boogeyman Sam, who up jumped the Boogeyman, he ate mama's babies, shot the policeman, went down to the nightclub, something like that. He's, at the end of the song, he's the one who's side-boogieing. He's fishing for fishies. He gets turned into a robot, maybe. I can't remember. It's his punishment or something like that. But he ties into the whole Gizverse story very well. And it's fun how well that ties in. Speaking of that, at the end of this album, you got that boogie rock, but then you transition into this crazy synth vibe at the end with Acarine and Psy Boogie, which they do it again. But it's unexpected. You're hearing it, you got that vibe, and it's such a switch up. And Psy Boogie, of course, has Boogie in the title, so it's a banger. I'm sure you can hear that. So I'm gonna lean out of the way so you get to see him jump out and run. Got my notes here. My least favorite song off of this album is Cruel Millennial, personally, but Cruel Millennial references PUBG in the first verse, so how bad could it possibly be? That's it's also written in 11/8. Yeah, it's Psy Boogie head is a mess. Psy Boogie's really fun. The synths that they add on there is great. There's a message delivered in reverse speak at the end Like you have to listen to it and turn it around. It's got a silly music video. Come on, cat. We're all waiting for you in there. Because I was going to talk about the idea of swing for this one. I'll save it for the next album then while he's in there. But they utilize swing a lot on Fishing for Fishies and the follow-up to Fishing for Fishies, which is something, I mean, they did it occasionally, but they didn't use it as much. And it's one of my favorite just musical techniques to add. Fishing for Fishies overall is also heavily underrated as a whole. I'm going to be putting it at the bottom of A tier. I think that the songs are great. It's a great road trip thing. The instrumentation's awesome. Cavs is really picking it up on the drums as well, and it's a fun time. Or does it have as many memorable hit songs off of it? No. But if we all grew up in the 1970s, maybe that would be a little bit different, and Fishing for Fishies would be a little bit more respected. He's still going. Now, the next album is one I know I don't own it, and that might surprise you. I did. Got a little bit of the tail. Sorry, I leaned forward, I ruined it. I did purchase a special version of it for my brother, but I do not own it myself. It, of course, is Infest the Rat's Nest. So, after what was a mid-lukewarm reception for Fishing for Fishies, which I regret I was also a part of, they released their foray into thrash metal with Infest the Rat's Nest. Now, unlike the other albums where it was a lot of them like jamming together, this one was primarily written by just Joey, Stu, and Cavs to protect you from the rats infestation. I'm afraid the whole idea is that the rats are already they've already infested us. Okay, they're in our positions of power. And they're paying essentially no taxes on. You know what I'm getting at. You can just listen to this stuff. But this was primarily written by Stu, Joey, and Cavs. The three of them. There's a good 30-minute documentary or something on it on YouTube called Ratty, and you just got they're just shirtless. It's grainy as they're making it. And it's so thrashy. Like originally, what we get in the end is a lot more contained and it sounds weird to say precise, but it's a lot more precise. This album also released with a free Doom rip-off video game. I can't remember if it's called Infest the Rat's Nest or Mars for the Rich. It plays terribly, but it's just fun that they did it. And so this album split into it's two different stories. Murder of the Universe was three different stories. This one's two. This one's got Mars for the Rich, right? You're probably thinking, I'm just a poor boy living frugally. I see Mars on TV. I see people laughing. There's the people on Earth who are struggling to get by. They're poor. They don't have money, and bad things happen to them. Organ farmer, in particular, the music video also tells the story of just a bunch of people essentially going to a rave, but then they get locked in and their organs get farmed and they get turned into robots. And we talked about the themes of digital black and Psy Boogie early on. That's not a good thing in the dying Earth. So there's that, and then there's a story of a number of travelers in space going insane. We're talking about Venusian 1 and 2 self-immolate. They decide that they want to, throw themselves into the sun. In the end, it's two different compelling stories told. This is a fast album too. What is it? 34 minutes long. Told quickly. So to me, okay, I reconnected. This is the most fun King Gizzard and the Wizard album. The riffage is heavy. It's not sloppy, but they're just heavy, fun riffs. The most fun song off of this album is definitely Hell. Number 2 would probably be Perihelion, but it's just a fun listen to. It sounds crazy when the song's about setting yourself on fire, played at a brisk pace, but I have a blast listening to Infest the Rat's Nest. Now, and if metal's not your thing, I'm sorry, because they're going to be playing these songs live forever. It immediately gets the crowd pumped up because I think that they figured out a great sound for them. And part of it is this idea of swing that they utilized on this is the yin yang with fishing for fishies. They utilize swing a lot on this. So that's like a normal beat would be ta 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 ta, and the swing is ta 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 ta. So let me take the Mars for the Rich riff. So ta 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 ta. If you remove the swing from that and just play it straight. Nobody's getting pumped for that, right? So to as simple as possible. That's why swing is so important to the feeling that this creates. Like the jump and down vibe is built up because of that, and the album is full of that swing sound, which is part of what makes it so fun to listen to. Yeah, my favorite on that's gotta be Hell. Mars for the Rich is the reason I move the swing slider even slightly on every song. No, yeah, there's famous classic adage: it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. And Mars for the Rich and Fishing for Fishies start to show that at least a little bit. So the songwriting on here, there's no songs that I don't like. We open with Planet B, which is just a banger of an opener, straight into Mars for the Rich, which has a bass solo, which means that I automatically love it. It's a pretty simple bass solo too. We talked about the pentatonic scale earlier. It's mostly just playing notes from that, just playing them in a compelling way. Into Organ Farmer. I like Organ Farmer and Self-Immolate. Those are just like the brutal, unbelievably fast craziness. Venusian 1 and 2, they took a while to grow on me, but I love Venusian 1 and 2. They're fun. You got Superbug, Perihelion, which is, yeah, I said the number 2 most fun, and closing out with Hell. Hell is definitely one of my favorites that they've made. So a brisk 34-minute album, incredible foray into thrash metal. Like I said, if you don't like this album too much, too bad. It's going to be played live until like the end of time. I'm going to be putting Infest the Rat's Nest just above Murder of the Universe. I'm 2 hours in. I'm putting it just above Murder of the Universe. So after Infest the Rat's Nest, a big global event happens, one that we're still reeling from the effects of. COVID hits, and the band have to cancel out of their 15 infantry paratroop into the propylene blue sea. Hell's where they want to be. Infest the Rat's Nest. Bop, bop, bop. Exactly. Nothing's more fun than that, right? If you hear that and you're like, I'm not into this. We're listening to a different band. So after Infest the Rat's Nest comes out, COVID hits, and the bands can't work together at all. You might be like, they all lived close together. They didn't just still go to the studio and wear masks or something like that. They didn't. They actually, they didn't work in studios together at all. So over this time, they're King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. They still were driven to create music, and they worked separately. And what this means is that these COVID albums, if we're talking like KGLW, they were created remotely, and every album up to this point was just like all mixed and mastered by Stu himself, the lead guy, and he'd mix all of the instrumentals as well. But here, because of the nature of them all doing their own recording, everyone got their own little experience with recording and manipulating their sound in the creation of these songs, which maybe that's a small detail, but I think it's compelling how that might have, like, that influenced how the band worked as a group, having to work separately and then like here and really manipulate how their own parts fit into these songs as a whole. KG is also the return to the microtonal sound that they had previously, the first album being Flying Microtonal Banana. But unlike Flying Microtonal Banana, that was written by like the group in a studio setting, this album was largely written like in MIDI. So I mentioned like the bass had stick-on frets that would move around and fall off. That's not the case for this album. A lot of the bass lines that you hear in this are actually MIDI bass lines. And obviously when they play it live, it's not like that. But what that means is I can't believe I haven't taken a sip of water until this point. Jesus. Well, what that means is the songs. I forgot. The limitations of the microtonal elements disappeared off this album. They were able to do whatever they want. They could develop the songs harmonically. They could choose whatever notes would fit more for the song. So the songs that we get off of KG and LW, I think it reflects that additional complexity that they were able to have, rather than just having the one flying microtonal banana, having Joey's dickhead with the bad frets, and so on. They were able to really express themselves. So I think that the songs on here are more compelling. If we're talking about soundscapes, we are now entering the realm of them really creating fantastic sounds. Early in Giz's career, the tape sound, or like the bitty kind of sound of Nonagon Infinity was I wouldn't say it's quirky, but it worked to their advantage because of how unique it was, and like it created a vibe. Now they're just like they can create expert sounding soundscapes that you can live in. Where like even if you don't like some of these songs on here, I'm gonna probably reference a couple of them, or like Ontology or whatever. The lead single off of this was Automation, and I know I haven't been mentioning the singles, but Automation I find is really funny as the lead single, because they said this song is free. You could do whatever you want with it. You could re-upload it to your own channel, yada yada. And it was a kind of a bit, because they knew that if you uploaded Automation, YouTube is going to automatically copyright strike it and give them money because of Automation. Even though they said it's free, it didn't matter. And Automation's a banger. Right after that, you got Minimum Brain Size, another Joey song, which he wrote after the Christchurch shooting in New Zealand. I'm sorry that if you didn't know, I think about that every time for reasons. I listen to that song pretty regularly. But yeah, those two songs are bangers, but there's some fantastic songwriting on here. Later on, we have another Joey song also, Intrasport. Intrasport kind of a little synthy. It's got this weird like Bollywood dance vibe, and let's call it a little bit of a taste of what's to come. Reminding you, Joey's he's a synth guy. He's an EDM guy, but he got trapped into this rock band. But he's to start to bring it back with just that dance banger, Intrasport, that people are dying for. I pulled out all of the staples for my notes with that last sheet. Whoops. But after that, we got I love Ontology on here. Odd Life is Cookie's favorite song of the band, and that he loves playing live. I love Odd Life as well. It's a song about how the band's like just adapting and getting used to being this crazy live group that people want to see. Like that's going to be their life now, and it's an odd life until you get it right, Honey is that's like if someone's like, what's a good love song? My King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I say Honey. Honey is written on an acoustic guitar, but it's in 7/4. It's got such a catchy bassline and groove, and it's just such a nice message. You taste like honey, all warm and funny. I think KG is a fantastic album. I don't know if I'm going to be rating. Let's see how I feel about how I'm going to combine that and what I'm going to do with that and its follow-up, which came out some months later, but they're clearly meant to be considered as like two parts of a whole. LW. LW is the heavier of the two albums. This is the one that came after. It's particularly heavier because it ends with KGLW. There's a little hint of KGLW at the beginning of KG, but this is it's a 10-minute long. Is it 10 minutes? 8 minutes? 8-minute long, crazy microtonal, crazy time signature anthem for the band that they close on. It's got the doom metal kind of sound, but this opens with If Not Now, Then When and One, which are two songs that to me seem like they broke back into the same neo-psychedelia space that they were able to hit with Work This Time so many years before. We've got a music video that's got kind of an Adventure Time animation style that got some serious hits, which I think is great because LW and KG are unique albums. You know, you're not gonna find a normal person really listening to this. Like Plura. Plura is Joey's love song for President Donald Trump, if you didn't know that. He also wrote Ataraxia on here, which is, if we're talking polyrhythms, that's the craziest polyrhythms that they've ever put into a song. This album's got some songs that they play that I didn't appreciate as much until they started playing live, that are just endless microtonal grooves, like Static Electricity and Supreme Ascendancy. I mean, especially Static Electricity. I can listen to, when they play it live, they're able to extend it, and it's just so groovy. So for this one, a lot of the individual songs aren't as memorable. Like East West Link, for example, that doesn't stack up to anything like Odd Life on KG, but the soundscapes that they were able to create are just as powerful. And it's an album that I feel like I can live in. Same with KG. So, you know, for both of these, I recommend there's 2 videos for KG and LW on the YouTube channel, on the band's YouTube channel, where Joey goes through how to play minimum grain size on guitar, and goes through and shows his guitar. And then Lukey goes through his bass gear and talks about how to play the closing song, KGLW, on bass, using a bass that I just immediately stopped using after that one. But you know what, I think I'm gonna be the change that I want to see in the world, and I'm gonna put KG and LW together as if they're one album. I haven't thought about where it would belong if I did that, but these two, they're definitely, if we're talking about underrated and overrated, they're on the underrated side of things. And if they're included as one, I'm gonna put them right here. It just looks better with them next to each other anyways, right? The KG and LW. Okay, moving on. Maybe I have to talk a little bit louder now. You can hear that. This is going to take a second. Just 1 second. I got to use the sign. I've returned, and I changed my shirt. I shut the door. I don't know if you could probably hear the shower starting to go really loud out there. So door's shut. Cat needs to poop. I'll clean it up off the grounds after I mow out for here, I suppose. So moving on from KG and LW, we're still in the COVID era, but we have a very interesting, another like sharp turn, unexpected turn from the band with the next album here, Butterfly 3000. So I alluded to, no, I don't know. Okay, that was the tape. I alluded to, I didn't get, what's it called, Paper Mâché Dream Balloon for a while. Butterfly 3000 also took me a while to really dive into, because it's got poppier songwriting. Yeah, definitely more for a poppy audience. And it took a little bit more for me to connect to it. Yeah, that's fair enough that I lost viewers there. Regardless. So here we're getting into some synth pop, neo-psychedelic pop, you know, the kind of thing that the Spotify algorithm is looking for. And I think that that's why it's near the top of the charts for their listened to albums. Not only that, but songs on here like Shanghai and Catching Smoke. It makes sense that the listenership is so high because they're just such great songs. So a lot of these songs were written after Stu, the main guy, became a father. So there's a few songs on here that are directly about like fatherhood, like Yours in particular is a song that he wrote for his kid. So there's great melodies. Largely, King Gizzard mostly doesn't deal with the major scale that much, but The songs on this album are largely based around like major scale and major scale ideas, which is one of the reasons why it's like the happiest listen to, like, of all of the albums that they have. Personally, I think that the second half of this album is a little weaker. So like after Catching Smoke, you got 2022 Killer and 202 Killer Year, Black Hot Soup, Your Love, and Butterfly 3000. I think are some of the weaker songs off of it, and a little bit of a spoiler, going to be one of the reasons why I might not rank this as high as a lot of other people do. But like Catching Smoke is such a good song in Shanghai. They're able to bring in these synths, which they hadn't used before, and create such catchy and happy melodies. Now, I don't know how this is going to work, but I feel like trying to add another bass thing in too. When you're learning an instrument, it's really easy to get caught in like this like one octave shape, but they use a lot of melodic ideas that use the note called the ninth, which is the first note above the octave. So trying to think about where I was going. I'm sorry. Like the bass line of Shanghai uses that ninth note, and that's what you can hear. When you go above, you can create those really cool melodic ideas where if you stayed low, I don't know where I'm going with that. I'm gonna ditch it right there. I gotta keep going. 2 hours and 16 minutes. I'm hungry. I'm getting loopy. I gotta keep that in mind. I promised that I'd go a little bit insane, so that's a little bit of the insanity here. Let's just... Okay, you hear ninths being mentioned but never knew the utilization? Yeah, you're able to create those spacey vibes, where like, if you just do the note right next to the root note, it doesn't have that vibe, but if you like, boom, 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 like it really creates that like elevated feeling, and you can create memorable little melodic ideas by going above that octave note. It's weird to be like, yeah, it's the same note as the one right next to the root, but it just has a different personality because of it being pushed above the octave. I'm going to put Butterfly 3000 in the B tier. As I noted, the weaker second half really hurts it for me. I'm going to be putting it right below Quarters, because Quarters has a river. That's a good enough reason for me right now, at least. So, after Butterfly 3000, we have Made in Timeland. Made in Timeland comes out in 2022. 2022, which we didn't know at the beginning was going to be another 5-album release here. Made in Timeland. I knew that it like came out, and I didn't hear it for months because it like wasn't on streaming platforms or something. Because the idea of Made in Timeland was that it was going to be an album that they'd play. Like each of the songs are exactly 15 minutes long, and they'd be 15-minute song break. I mean, it's 15-minute song breaks for like their 3-hour live shows where they play a song off of Made in Timeland, and then once it's over, they come back on. That was at least the general idea of Made in Timeland. So we've got these two electronic songs, and I was listening to all these albums twice before this came out, and Made in Timeland to me it's the most, not disappointing, it's the least compelling release that they've had. And I'm glad that I'm not going to have to just be like, these boys don't know how to use electronic, like nobody's going to accuse me of saying they don't know how to use electronic instruments, because we're eventually going to be getting to the silver chord. I think that this works as like a starter, like a good practice for them for what they would eventually try to do. So this is the first of 5 albums in 2022. 2022, the band's all around 32 years old at this point. So in case you know your history about like the 27 Club, you're just like, oh, once you get past 27, if you don't die, you're washed. But they clearly show that they're continuing to learn and explore different sounds as they continue on. At this point, also in their live shows, they start to play with in-ear monitors. Previously, the group, it would just be a sound war, as they call, where everyone would just turn up so they could try to hear their own part. But now they've got in-ear monitors where they can hear everything that everyone else is doing, almost like with a live mix. So they're able to start working more tightly together as a group at this time as well. So Made in Timeland in particular, two 20-minute long songs, exactly 15 minutes long. You can hear Cavs marks every second on the second throughout this album, which is, I mean, it's a cool detail. And the way that they're able to weave that one, like the per second rhythm around all the rhythms of the songs in here is compelling. However, I find that Made in Timeland, it's the only Giz album that doesn't sustain active listening, at least for me, active listening where I'm paying attention, listening to the details. I find myself zoning out no matter what, which is not that big of a deal. That's what it's like for most music that I listen to begin with. But in the end, it's got fun, basic grooves throughout it. But when you place it against the other albums on this tier list, I find it's a bit lackluster and unsatisfying. I do like Made in Timeland. I listened to it twice to prepare for this. I will not be listening to it again anytime soon. But I have no problem with it. If someone were to turn it on, I would just be like, really? You're turning on Made in Timeland? This is the bottom of C tier, though. Definitely isn't. I'm just going to spoil it. Nothing's going to go below that. So this is the low. That's the low, and I like it, which is a testament to Giz, I think. Next up is an album that I'm surprised I don't have. I'm probably going to get it at some point. Omnium Gatherum. This is like the true first album that came out in 2022. It's the third Bits and Bobs album, the final in the trilogy. The one where it's taking a collection of songs. In this case, I don't know if they're previously unreleased, but they're not previously unreleased, but just a collection of different ideas, combining them into one album. And Omnium Gatherum is notably the return to the studio for King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. We were talking about the previous albums were written in COVID apart. Here they all got to go back into the studio and got to play together, and you can hear that joy throughout this album. Most notably on the song that released as a single, just I had no idea it was coming, The Dripping Tap. I opened my phone one day, I see 18.5-minute long song from King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. What? And then I was like, the boys are back, right? You could see I loved Infest the Rat's Nest, but it took me a while to get KGLW too. If you asked me in 2021, I would have put them a lot lower down. I was like, maybe 2017 was the high point, and when they were 27, and now they're just trying to make music. But when they released the Dripping Tap, it reminded me like, no, these guys they still know how to rock too. The Dripping Tap, 18.5 minutes long. I think they got 4 demos for it out now too. What a great single to bring people back. So. But not just the Dripping Tap. This album is full of a diverse set of sounds. We've got Peace, the evilest man on this uses a synth loop from Psy Boogie. When I listened to Fishing for Fishies yesterday, and there's a synth loop in it that they use as like the main beginning of Evilest Man. So even it's like the it's a small detail, but there's stuff like that all throughout their discography where they're just like, let's just reuse that little idea that we had from an album 5 years ago, I guess, and incorporate it into a new song. Evilest Man, for example, the song I'm never going to hear anyone ever talk about. I love Evilest Man. Song about Rupert Murdoch, if I'm not mistaken. But we got diverse sounds. We got like Santana, this like Smooth and Black Magic Woman. We got those vibes with Presumptuous, going into like old school hip hop vibes with Sadie Sorceress and Grim Reaper, where they're using samples. They're trying to do the whole hip hop thing. I really enjoy them, but I'm so giz-pilled. I don't know if Sadie Sorceress and Grim Reaper actually hold up to Nas, but. I have a good time. The way that I describe Omnium Gatherum it's sort of similar to Gumboot Soup, but I think it's more the case with this one, where it's you're turning on a jukebox. It's just jumping different genres, and the hits don't stop. Like Presumptuous. You wiggle like this when you hear that. That's one of Haley's favorites. It's a dancey groove. We got Blame It on the Weather, which is great. This song's in 7/4, which is wild. I love that. We got Ambergris, Joey's song here. I could wanted to play something from the bass on it, but I don't think I'm gonna do that. Ambergris is a great song. Magenta Mountain and Kepler 22B. Magenta Mountain, you got that brilliant Sid. Kepler 22B. This is a great song. That one, just one bass line just going throughout it, that memorable one. You got a fun cookie song on here with the Garden Goblin. It took a while for me to come around to the Garden Goblin, but I did. And not only that, but we've got two great, one great metal song. The other one I'm fine with. Predator X. I don't love it. But we've got Gaia, which is one of their other classic metal songs that they play live. With that 9/8 groove. I've had people who don't know Giz message me. How are you supposed to dance to Gaia? I'm just like, well, that's kind of a bit. But I kind of think of it like a dum dum da 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 boom boom da 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 boom boom da da da. But that's not really that good of dancing, is it? That's more of a headbang strategy. Maybe you have your own methods, okay? I'm not the master of dancing to Gaia by King Gizzard and Wizard. When I listened to this album, I was going to bring it up with the bass, but when you listen to it in detail, compared to previous albums from King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, you could see that they've upped their game. Lukey's using different bass techniques on this album that he hadn't used previously, that really add a lot more personality to what's going on. And the rest of the band really stepped up their game as well over these releases. And you could see it over the diversity of this, but I think that next album shows their increased proficiency as well. And I just gotta say, when I'm listening to the Dripping Tap, 18.5 minutes, I can listen to just calves. Every measure is a fill. And it's a great drumming idea. It's at this point, this is where he starts to ascend to oh yeah, I forgot to mention the leaving of Eric. That's fine. He starts to ascend and show that he's, to me, the most talented member of the band. If not the best not the best songwriter, but the most talented, musician of the group. I'm not sure where I wanted to put Omnium Gatherum. So I think I'm going to just be a little, I'm going to put it here. Can you hear Mambo number 5 playing in the background? Can you hear Mambo number 5 outside? The year's 2023. When did Mambo number 5 come out? What was that, 2003, 4, 5? Don't play Mambo number 5 in 2023. You're gonna embarrass yourself. I've got the pile of paper that I've got going behind this monitor. You can't see it. It's hilarious. Yeah, how am I supposed to be talking and listening to Mambo number 5 from outside, wondering if it's going into the mic at the same time? This is incredibly difficult. So, Dripping Tap, Omnium Gatherum comes out, April, May of 2022. And then in the middle of the summer, I signed, after that album, I signed up for the Gizzy Mail. And I find an announcement that they're going to release 3 albums over the course of October. And the first one is an exploration of modes, which is a musical thing that I wasn't familiar with, where it's going through all the different modes of the major scale. It's called Ice Death, Planets, Songs, Mushrooms, and Lava. I'm really curious if you ask the members of the band if they'd be able to get the album name right. I know that I still can't. I always mess it up. And my bet would be none of them will be able to say the album name right, but that's okay. This one I do own. This one, unfortunately, I just have it's standard black wax. It's a double LP because it's long. Yeah, I'm getting to that, don't worry. I'm the only person who ordered the standard black wax and actually got standard black wax. Everyone else got rainbow LPs and stuff like that. I love how the black looks. Give me a cool color. This one's my fiance's favorite. King Gizzard and the Lizard. When it came out, she would just be like, we'd be on a road trip. She'd be like, you could turn that King Gizzard into a Wizard album on. And, you know, by the time she finishes a sentence, my ceilim's already 10 seconds in. But this album was created over the course of 7 days. So they booked studio time. They had 7 days in the studio. And their idea was they're going to jam on each of the modes of the major scale 1 day a week. And afterwards, Stu, the crazy man who never sleeps and just lives and breathes music, was just going to turn them all into their own songs based off of each of the modes of the major scale. Each of the modes of the major scale. At least the idea of it. So, and it's just a very jam exploration of the modes, and it leads to longer songs. And with the jam structure of King Gizzard songs leads to different songs than we had in the past, like Beginner's Luck style tracks on here that have very deliberate movements like that. I think that Calves transcends humanity. Can you hear that? Oh, you would be able to see that. Oh, I wish that I could just open and show the people right outside the window. That would have been good. Yeah, so we've got jazzy rock vibes. Calves is starting to transcend humanity. The grooves that he's setting up to guide you through some of these crazy songs and changes it's notable. And it's where I definitely fell in love with him, and now I can't stop watching Calves whenever I see the band play. Maybe my highlight of this album is of the song Hell's Itch, which is 15 minutes long. And it doesn't overstay its welcome, at least in my mind. Near the end, Joey comes in. It's this creepy song of, like an actual disease that you can get. I can't remember. It's like a type of sunburn where you feel like you're burning alive, and it's the Hell's Itch. And Joey comes in like, the breeze on my flesh feels so fucking good. You look at me now, like that. I'm seeing God. And it's part of Hell's Itch, which is not even in my top 3 favorite songs off of the album, because this album also has Ice 5, which is bonky. It's so bonky. I can listen to it all the time. First time I listened to it, Haley and I, we went to a Tenacious D concert. My fiance and I. And we went to a Tenacious D concert, and on the way back, I saw like King Gizzard released a new single, Ice 5, and I turned that on in the car, and I'm just like, how do I say that I enjoyed this so much more? I had a fun time watching Tenacious D, but then immediately after, I'm like, oh, Ice 5, this is some sauce right here. We got it. But Ice 5's a huge live tune, but it's the 3rd biggest live tune that comes off of this. This album also has Iron Lung, which is just massive. Iron Lung is like the solo and the vocals in it at the end. It's huge. It's like I heard it and I'm just like, this is kind of like their Stairway to Heaven style, like just anthemic, huge, epic song, at least to me. And it also has Magma, which is her favorite as well. So I'll learn how to play that one fully. And Magma is so groovy. I love just at the end, it's just pummeling. It turns into we like to beat your head with Magma by the end. Now, we're going to see how this goes. But I'm going to try to explain to you what this idea of the modes of the major scale is and how all these songs work. So, like, we're not doing too many, like, this one's not about chord changes. It's more about note choice. So if we take a major scale here, that major scale is what the first song off the album is, Mycelium's using. So, like, what's it? And I think that Mycelium's a happy, upbeat song, and it really matches that mood. So after Mycelium, then we go to Ice 5. And Ice 5 is the 2nd mode of the major scale, which is Dorian. So Dorian is... Dorian is the funk scale. So like... And it's also what songs like Down the Sink use. Very funky, and Ice 5, obviously, they really really leaned into that funk element, and that's why it's so funky and dancey. I love the music video for this. It's just Joey dancing around Greece, He said that he hated filming it because there was just people looking at him the whole time, but it's pretty funny. The third song off of the album, Magma, goes into Phrygian. You can hear that one, that's not a happy sound. It's a bit of an evil sound, so that's why it's got this like dark dancey beat that they're going for, like. So they listen to that, and then at the end, that brutal ending, it just fits in, at least for me, that Phrygian so well. After Phrygian, we go into this weird, the weirdest one. It's called Lydian, sorry, and that's like a weird major scale. It has this weird dissonance added into it, which makes it odd, and that's why but it's really good at creating this major sounding kind of spacey vibe, which I think is probably why they opened with that. It's like that free-form jazz lead-in with some of the best improvised drumming from Cavs. Like, it's so expressive that I've heard. So Lava's interesting. It's Lydian's known as like nearly impossible to write into, which is probably it's a weird song. It's not my favorite, but I love what they're going for, and it's part of the grand concept. After that, we got Mixolydian. This is the Hell's Itch one. It's got this really classic rock sound, and it's great for jamming, which is probably why it's a 15-minute long, just classic rock style song with such great solos and melodic ideas throughout it, and it makes sense to me. We got. And then after that, we've got Iron Lung. That's just the minor scale. I don't need to talk too much about that. It's just, classic minor scale. It's rock and roll. And then the last one that we have, Glies 710. If you ever wondered why that song sounds so weird, it's because it's using the Locrian scale, is what it's called. And it's very difficult to compose anything that's based around that, which is why it has that weird vibe. I love what they're doing with the vocals on Glies 710. Reef the water, destroy the planets, move the mushrooms, prepare the lungs. I think that each song really gives a good picture of how all the modes worked, and when I heard it, that's what made me pick up the bass, because I was like, I'm really curious as to how these work, and I wanted to figure it out, and all I'm getting at is we're putting Ice Death in the S tier. The last tier list I made, I put it in first. You can see I'm keeping Polygondwanaland above it. Yeah, technically, I did have the bass beforehand, but Ice Death is what made me really dive into the bass in particular, just because of the musical creativity on it. I really wanted to understand what they were doing and how it worked. Because if they're just like jamming on that one scale the whole time and not changing it, it should be something that I should be able to figure out to do too. And yeah, once you learn those scales, once you figure out what the key is, you can actually easily jam along to any of the songs off of this album yourself on whatever instrument. It's a pretty fun time, especially because if you listen to it as much as I have, then when the switches and the vibes change, so you can come up with your own ideas that fit in. So after that, we have the second album of 2 exactly 15-minute long songs that came out for live shows. Hearing someone wooing outside. And we can hear the person wooing. No, nobody heard Mambo number 5 either. There's another one. This is just my own personal hell, I suppose. So, after Ice Death, Long's Mushrooms, Planets and Lava. Giz fan? I mean, it's a woman, so it's very unlikely that they're a Giz fan. I'm sorry, that's a self-own right there, but. After that, we have our second 15-minute long. The woos are getting me, man. 2 15-minute song album, Laminated Denim. Laminated Denim has 2 songs on it. It's got a completely, it's different vibe than Main and Timeland. This is like a krautrock, progressive rock kind of style. Listening to this, it takes me back to when I was in 2016 listening to like older groups like Can and Kraftwerk, even though Kraftwerk, I'm going to be mentioning them again. Like it's these songs where it's just they'll just develop slowly over time. They take their time and they've got great melodic ideas. The Land Before Timeland, I think, is a great song, but the real highlight of this album is Hypertension. After Hypertension came out, I like to run. I ran to it every day for like a month, and I'm going to be listening to Hypertension for years. It's a 15-minute long song, which sounds crazy to say given that how masterfully they're able to ratchet up the tension and let it release. They utilize the same kind of thing. I mean, it's kind of got the same thing at the end as the dripping tap, with like the drip drip from the tap don't slip. That I caught that hypertension in another dimension outside my time invention. I've laminated denim. Just memorable, fun melodic ideas as well. So this album to me is marked like this vibe. If I'm trying to explain it, I know that in 2022, Stu became what's called Deadhead. So we're talking about Grateful Dead fans. If you ever go to a live King Gizzard concert and you notice the wall of old dudes at the back, those are the Deadheads who are just like, this is the new Grateful Dead. I'm gonna go see them live. That's who we're talking about. So Stu became a Deadhead himself, and I think that's representative of these jammy songs that we hear them writing, as well as their live shows, which continue to evolve and change, and like the songs are never played the same anymore because he wants each show to be representative of the song at a different time. Now, I was able to be lucky enough to see the live debut of Hypertension. They played it live in DC, so you know that I live somewhere around there now. But I got to see the live debut of Hypertension, and it was great because they played Roundabout beforehand as a warm up, and they just came out and just pounded it out, and then like Stu was like, "I felt good to play live." And I was like, "Yeah, it's incredible." I adore Hypertension, but if we're talking about how this album ranks amongst the other ones, I really like Land Before Timeland just as a song, but as like a cohesive album to stand up to something along the lines of Fishing for Fishies or Flying Microtonal Banana, it's not there. But Hypertension's in like my top 5 favorite songs. So I can't, there's another woo. Can you hear the woos? I think we gotta put it below Fishing for Fishies here. I like Hypertension more than anything on Fishing for Fishies, but as like a holistic album, like a lot of these have so much more going for it. Like this one invented microtonal rock. This one's got the transition to woo. This one's got the transition to Cyboogie and Acarine and so on. Like they got more going on for it. But the songwriting, the jamming in the song, Laminated Denim are crazy. Next up. Remember at the beginning I had that one piece of tape that was working and it was just sticking on there for every album. Now like half the time I get new tape, half the time I don't. But I can see the end. We're almost 3 hours in, but I can see the end. We got changes. I own, finally, we're going back to an album that I own. I have changes. You can see this is, at this point I started, I was like, I'm now Gizpilled. I'm going to get one of the initial releases that they only make 2,000 of. So they had like alternate covers, alternate like album art at the ends, and this one is my one. It's my Cars Lightning McQueen white wall tires. So this is in all white vinyl. So it just, I feel so cool. You might put this out and people see it. It's just like, oh, that's a white one. It's just fun. So Changes is an album. Yeah, the last one that they released in 2022. It was intended to be the 5th album, or one of the 5 albums in 2017. It was going to be one long song, like referencing Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull, where it was going to be one like 40-minute long song. And the whole idea of it was this idea of the key changes. I keep pulling it up here. What am I doing? Of key changes, where it would be changing between, what were the 2 keys? Changing between the keys of D major and F major was the idea, and changing between those keys. And well, the reason why that's notable is changing keys every chord leads to notes and note choices that you normally don't hear in music. And that's one of the reasons why it has some of these cool jazzy notes and memorable little hooky melodies, like the do 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 do, like that. It's the woos. It's got no choices that you wouldn't hear in a normal song as a result of these key changes. So this is an example of where they're using a restriction or like an idea of switching between these two chord changes and making a whole album based off of it that results in interesting creative results. Like the opener on this, you could see the remnants of the full 40-minute long album in the opener change, which is over 13 minutes long. You can see like almost every band member has their own verse. Like Cookie, Ambi's got his rap. There's the Joy verses and so on. I love Change. It's a great song that they wrote. It was one of my favorites. I love hearing it. The rock out period at the end. That's where they bring in the swing. The dun 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 dun. It's just a great musical journey. But if we're talking about change and changes, I think that the whole album is actually pretty great. And to finally finish off my trilogy of underrated albums, this is one of the 3 most underrated King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard albums. Not because it has that great unifying concept, which is part of it, but the songs after this I think are also fantastic. If you ever need to remember how they go, they're in order, like this is an acronym. So it goes from Change to Hate Dancing, which is like the most disliked single that they released in a while when it was released, but it's such a good dancey vibe. Into AstroTurf. I love AstroTurf. AstroTurf's just got this like, yes, the jazz fusion vibe. It's got a drum solo, flute solo, and bass solo. I know that you love Hey Dancing, but the reception was not that great, particularly following like Ice Death and Omnium Gatherum, which released like the singles off of Omnium were Dripping Tap, Kepler 22b, Gaia, and Magenta Mountain. So Hey Dancing seemed like a letdown to a lot of people, but a lot of things are a letdown to a lot of people, including the last album on this list. But people tend to be wrong. So Hey Dancing, then we go into AstroTurf. AstroTurf, I love that the combination flute drum and bass solo. Then after that we go to Nobody. Nobody, when I heard it, I'm just like, this is my replacement for Hotel California. It fills that void. It's got the solos and everything. I don't need to hear that progression ever again. Yeah, well, not a lot of people hated PDA, to be fair, but Silver Cord is definitely going to be a mind bender. They get the single. They hear the title song, the Silver Cord, coming out. They're like, what the hell is going on? I love Nobody. Nobody talks about Gandhi. Is that's another synth song. I think there's no guitars on it, and there's a lot of fans of that. And then we've got the most understated but fantastic closers to this. We've got Exploding Suns, which is like a great acoustic vibe, and then Short Change, which I think Short Change goes insane. It's just recontextualizing the idea of the first song Change in the lyrics, but just like in like a psychopathic, like high energy sort of manner. It's got a crazy like arpeggiating synth going on. Oh, here we go. Round 2 for the cat. Crazy arpeggiating synth going on and stuff. I can understand why people don't like it as much, but I love Short Change. This one, like I said, it's definitely forgotten in comparison, but I'm going to place it higher probably than I should. Got a little bit of the... I leaned forward at the exact wrong moment again. This bad boy, I'm putting it this high. I'm putting it right under Omnium Gatherum. At least for now. 3 hours in. How good was I? I'm guessing that it would take 3 hours for me to get through this? Because that's the end of 2022. Oh, one note that I just want to make. I know that you hear changes and you're like, I can't write that. But the main idea that I want you to take away from it is if you're thinking about your own music, Like, what they decided to do, they put that restriction, that key change thing on there, which breaks the rules of music. It turned some notes, the order that they're supposed to go, it flipped the order around, and it created those interesting jazzy results. So just, there are rules, there's music theory, and there's ideas like that. But the point of music theory is not to restrict you, it's to let you know what you can break and make interesting out of it. And I think changes is a beautiful example of what you can do if you decide to break the rules a little bit and really explore that idea. So I'm putting changes in the 8s here. And now we're gonna move on. We're getting near there. We were near the end. Of course, now we are entering 2023. We get the announced release of another yin yang album combination. You already know. I've got this one. PetroDragonic Apocalypse, or Dawn of Eternal Night and Annihilation of Planet Earth and the Beginning of Merciless Damnation. I just write PDA, or PetroDragonic Apocalypse. I got the Flamethrower edition. I love it. Look at the color on that. I mean, maybe it matches me a little bit, but I think it looks gorgeous. It does roll. It truly does roll off the tongue. I mean, they know that, right? It's like the Doctor Strangelove, or how I learned to stop worrying and love the bomb kind of thing going on. On the back, we got, the reason why I want to talk about this cover, you see Stu shirtless and flexing cold, stuff like that. One thing that's notable about Stu that I think about pretty often is that he suffers from Crohn's disease, which means that he struggles to put on weight, and he gets pretty sick pretty easily. There's a couple times when they've had to cancel a lot of live shows for it, but you could see, and there's times if you look in the past, he's unbelievably skinny. But look at this cover here. You can see he's storing some muscle in there, and it gives me a little bit more confidence for the future of Stu. Look at that face. See, that's a good one. Is it like a Ferrari jacket? Regardless, I just want to bring up Stu's Crohn's disease. It's something to keep in mind, and it's, you never know when it's gonna rear its ugly head, and maybe it affects him, it affects his family, and they are all great emotes, and it affects their live shows. So I'm just hoping that they're able to continue to deal with it as much as possible. This album cover, it was like oil painting. Here you can see it's embossed. It's beautiful. PetroDragonic Apocalypse, the first album release of 2023. Yeah, it's going to be the yin yang. It has two singles as part of the release. We got Gila Monster and Dragon. Gila Monster in particular, we're kind of going back to the Infest the Rat's Nest sound. That's a very simple metal song in structure, but the thing about Gila Monster versus, to me, like your average metal song, is that it's unbelievably fun. It's got an inbuilt chant, and that is very easy to pick up on. You just shout Gila when the band shouts Gila. And then Dragon, I'll talk a little bit about Dragon again in a second. So this is the return to metal, but like the albums that we were talking about for 2022, Laminated Denim and Ice Death in particular, this is created using, this is a jam album yet again. I don't know how many metal albums were written in a jam setting, but this one was written in a jam setting where they would jam together and jam metal and to write these songs, which is why they're able to have such interesting and unexpected developments. Like Motor Spirit, the opener, is 8.5 minutes long. I turn that on, it's almost like, it's blisteringly fast, but you feel like you're on a 20-minute long journey because you don't know where that thing's going. And a lot of these songs are like that, where the idea is they do connect into each other, but they evolve so compellingly over time. This album is if you don't believe that Cavs is the most talented of the group, I implore you to re-listen to PetroDragonic Apocalypse, because Cavs on this album is absolutely incredible. Some of my, Dragon in particular, some of my favorite drums that I've heard. I love the beats and rhythms that he's doing on it. And he's also, Cavs is an integral writer of a lot of the songs of these, because once again, we're returning to that crazy polyrhythmic space. So you need it's great to have your drummer on board to help tie the whole band together. And he ties when Stu's singing something different than what the bass is playing, he's tying both of them together with the drums, and it's quite the thing to hear. Now, I know that I put Ice Death at number 2, but a weakness of it is its lyrical content. I think they wrote the songs, and then essentially they made a word cloud, or like the Google Doc where they're just throwing words together. There's memorable lyrics like "It's a different kind of cuttlefish, swinging a miss, dancing with my eyes and lips, can gamble on my hips, gotta keep my mind distracted from the swish." Like, it's memorable, but the lyrical content in particular isn't exactly, like, it's not a great story in the same way that something like Murder of the Universe is. That is not the case anymore when they release PetroDragonic Apocalypse. The story here, it's an unbelievably detailed apocalypse story. It's fun. It's got references to sort of religions and mythologies, and it's the story of, like, humans at the beginning, motor spirit. It's our car culture. You're thinking Mad Max, Fury Road and stuff like that. Like, it sets you up. You get that motif, and then you go into Supercell, which with a ton of imagery of stuff like the Wizard of Oz and such. Supercell, like, talking about the gigantic storms and hurricanes that humans start to experience and to converge. You know, humanity coming together, deciding to try to finally fight this thing now that it's too late. Going into, of course, witchcraft. Yeah, I love Supercell. The call and response vocals in the chorus, it's brilliant. Yesterday, I went on a run, and I passed a guy who's like a big, buff army dude, and I was just listening to normal music, and then as I passed him, I hear him go to, like, pump himself up, and he, like, cocks his arms. Like, if you've seen Mission Impossible Fallout or the ad, Henry Cavill, like, cocks his arms before getting into a fight. I could see him doing that in the corner of my eye, and I turned on Supercell, and I'm like, you're done. Nobody's ever catching me if I'm listening to Supercell, especially like that, and near the end, like the 24 dead in my state, like that element. But yeah, witchcraft. It's where, we converged as humanity. What's our solution to this climate change problem that we said? Well, we're going to use witchcraft to resurrect the Gila monster. But unfortunately, when the Gila monster is resurrected, a black cat knocks over a candle, lights everything on fire, gives the Gila monster a taste for oil and gasoline, turns it into a dragon, who then blows flames over the world and kills us all. So it's a holistic story. It's great. There's a vinyl exclusive track. You can find that on YouTube. But look at this. Leah Senior returns to narrate this whole story. It's essentially like the album retold again, but just in one cohesive tale. It's unlike something like Murder of the Universe. The background music isn't really there as much. It's mostly about the poem. But the notable thing about this album is every song is a banger. Like, the weakest on it is either Converge or Gila Monster, and I love both of those songs and listen to them all the time. And when that's the case, I'm foreshadowing where it's got to be on the tier list. If every song on your album is a banger, it's got to be somewhere higher up. No, personally, I want to talk about Dragon. Dragon is got to be my favorite song by them right now. I've been listening to it constantly because it goes into that thing that I was talking about where it evolves so unexpectedly over time. You've got the section with the Tool drumming. Kev's playing the toms. You got Joey doing his like throat singing in Latin, and then the insane beats that they pull out, like the rhythms and the way that it ramps up the tension near the end. It's just an exhilarating ride. The music video in particular is such a fun time. There's like the dragon when it runs to the where it's moving forward. It really digs into it and lets you feel. I guess what I'm feeling when I hear this song. I think Dragon's an exemplary song for it. It's 10-minute long, incredible songwriting that just flows. It's technical and it's brutal, and it grabs your attention. It's still very King Gizzard and the Wizard. So Dragon it's got to be my favorite off of it. Yeah, and then I guess I should talk about the bass a little bit. So we can talk about Gila Monster a little bit, and then also like how you write metal. So Gila Monster, there's and then so the main things that are used there's two. One, they've returned to swing, at least for Gila Monster. You can hear it, right? Like that ba, da, 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 ba, da, ba. Like you know that that's what's going on there. But they're also using a lot of what's called the minor two. And this is the jaws sound. But it's also how you just create something that sounds evil in metal. Like the so they use that all the time, and then there's this idea of, like I noted the diminished chords before when we were talking about. But if you stick to just the diminished notes when you're trying to write a metal song, that's how you create some of these nasty grooves. So this is really this. There's like notes of, it's called like an arpeggio. It's just climbing up and down, but it sounds so badass. So really, it's just, if you're ever trying to write something, like try to remember this or like figure out what they are. There's the minor two, and then there's the tritone, which sounds, it's that when you combine it together, that's the devil sound, quote unquote, which is a myth. It's that devil sound when you combine them. And if you add those to riffs, just simple ideas, like we talked about with Willoughby's Beach at the very beginning, you can write, like a lot of these songs can be really, really simple, but it's about those note choices. And if you're like, I want to create a metal song that sounds badass, you want to use those two. And you'll get a lot further than you'd think, even if you're starting out. Oh, PetroDragonic Apocalypse, though. I'm putting that at number 3. It's hard to... I'm thinking about those two. That's a difficult point. But let's move on. I think number 3, good enough. We're putting it in the S tier. Now, we finally gotten to the moment that a lot of people have been waiting for. I'm trying to think about how I'm going to put all of my thoughts together. We've got the silver chord. So today it is Sunday, the 29th. The silver chord came out 2 days ago. I've listened to the extended edition 4 times and the standard edition twice. Now you could say, is that enough to really understand the King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album, especially given that this one's so weird? I think maybe I've listened to them enough, where it's enough for me to have a true opinion. So this one has you know, it's released with 2 different versions. There's the standard version and then the extended version. And the whole idea is the standard version gives you the ideas of what each of the songs are trying to go for, while the extended edition let the band really dig into each of the songs. Their goal was to like turn each into like an endless groove that they could sit in for hours, and then somehow trim it down to a mere 12 minutes or whatever, depending on the song. So this is the Yang album. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you think it's a good tier list. And we'll see if where this one goes offends you, but yeah, I guess you're right. It's pretty much all there already. So they were inspired to write the silver chord, the Yang album, to the PDA's Yang after Cavs found this synth drum set, where I could look it up, and you could look it up too. I want that drum set. I like hearing how it's used on this album now that Cavs has like ascended, and he's incredible. The sounds that drum set is able to make is great. It creates such good vibes, especially on like Extinction. That's where the drums are the highlight for me. Extinction being the closer. So the songs feature all the band members, as you can see on the album cover here. I know I don't have the vinyl. It's on the way. I'm getting the Ancient Light Extended Edition, obviously. At this point, you could probably guess it. I've got my big stack that I would have gotten that. But we got all 6 guys here. These guys synth drums, but the other 5 are all on their own synths. themselves. And so typically with electronic music like this, you'd expect it to be like some sort of looper. But here instead, they're all just playing. So we've got Joey and Stu doing, pretty much everyone fell into their normalish roles. Joey and Stu are doing the main melody stuff, working on harmonizing with each other. At this point, they'd been doing like a year and a half of not only playing in the studios again, but like when they're playing live, like I said, they've got those in-ear monitors. They're listening to each other all the time. They've learned how to layer over each other and work together like a Beastie Boys music video where they're trading off who's in front and who's not. But you call them the main lads. To me, it's like I think Cavs is a main lad. I think you listen to a King Gizzard live show, like the two clearest ones that you can hear are Cavs and Lukey, for me, and like the Stu, Cookie, and Joey, and Ambi even a bit. They can all like wash over each other, which is great. It's an integral part of their sound. But bassist is a main lad, says the guy with the bass behind him. But still. So this was another album that's obviously created largely through jamming, like the other ones, and obviously they're playing with synths that's not their normal wheelhouse. So apparently when they started work on this album, they were considering throwing it out because everything they made sounded like garbage when they were trying to work on it, which is fun, you know? You like to hear that they struggled a little bit, and it makes sense that they did. So I'm going to largely be reviewing, exactly, they're all great contributions. Yes. I'm going to be reviewing mostly the extended version. I'm going to talk about each of the songs, but the standard version, I think, actually works really well because it gives you like a little hit of each of the songs and the main ideas, right? Like they're not getting into that part where they're all washing over each other and jamming, but you get the idea of each song, and it's a frenetic pace moving you from song to song. It's 28 minutes, the standard version, which is near the shortest that they've ever been, really. So that's fun, and I'm gonna talk about the standard version again once I get through the songs. And then this is another album where I don't have the album yet, so I can't read the lyrics, but there's exemplary lyricism on this. Great themes of Set, Gilgamesh. We've got mythology scattered throughout this. It's like a kind of a retelling, different telling of the PetroDragonic Apocalypse story, and I think that lyrically they're on their game, at least for the 2023 albums. Then so Thea, we got the first three songs that were singles, so we were ready for them. Thea, the extended version turns into 20 minutes long, and this is another one that like I went straight back into when I was discovering the old synth music, Kraftwerk, Can with the krautrock back when I was in college, where it's these songs that they can last forever, but you don't mind because the way that they change and evolve over time really like lets you settle in there. It's kind of like if you're listening to The River, but in a more synth forward context. In the extended version, the highlight for me of Thea is that it's the harmonized mode of spirit, right? So the idea of this album is that it's a yin yang, meaning that you could take that like the songs are timed. There's 7 songs and they have their corresponding part on PetroDragonic Apocalypse and the Silver Chord. And Thea's yang is motor spirit. And there's a moment where they harmonize the motor spirit a bit. And it's a cathartic. It's a cathartic return. You can tell the extended versions are definitely for the Gizzheads, but I am one, so that's okay. Now after that we go to the Silver Chord. The Silver Chord, when I heard the shortened version of it, it reminded me a little bit of Ween. Ween's one of the big bands that I liked before I really got into Giz. With the warbles, electronic vocals, and the way that it was going was strange. It took me a few listens of that single to really pick up on what it was going for, and I love the dissonant, even the baby vocals. I love the dissonance and the strangeness of the beginning because I think it evolves harmonically to such a beautiful piece of music from that weird spot. It's a great listen. The lyrics are weird. You mentioned circumcision, in case you didn't know that. it's just a weird song. I wasn't ready for it, and I love where it goes. I love the silver chord. I also really love Thea. So this is like Joey, as I mentioned a few times. Joey is the main force behind them having all these synths. Joey is an electronic musician. That's how he got started, and that's like mainly what he does. He has a side project, Bold. And then this is the Joey song mainly. He's the one singing on it. If you see the music video for it, you can tell he's the one singing and dancing along to the silver chord. In this one, it's dripping Joey, the silver chord. And so this album's a testament to him. And I think this weird song and how it develops it's so Joey, and it sounds a lot like Bullet, his side projects. And so I love that. The note that I put for here is the extended version of the silver chord spongles me up. Spangle is a legendary like psychedelic synth group. They make just weird music designed to see God and to take acid too and so on. And that's kind of the sound that he's touching on here. I think silver chord's a great song. And we go into Set. Set's interesting because Set is the song that when I heard the singles originally was my favorite of the three. But I think that Set is the song that is hurt by the extended edition most. Like, as the short version, I think it's one of the stronger tracks, but the extended version of it doesn't add as much to the song as the other ones on this album. That being said, when I was watching the original songs, watching the music video as it comes out, you're going, then Set comes on, and I couldn't help but start going like this. The grooves are tangible. I love the rap coming in. I love the tone when Stu comes in with the "I'm in trail of a snake" or whatever it is. I love that. It's just you can feel the tangible grooves that they expand on later. This one is the most chantable song on the album. The Slay the Mighty Set. I think Set. Great King Gizzard was a song right there. Then we go from there to Chang-yi. And this one, I think, is the counter to Set, where when I heard the standard version of Chang-yi, first, it felt like the weakest of the song list, but the expansion from the extended edition really lets it shine. I think of this as, when you listen to this song, you could listen to it and compare it to Butterfly 3000, because it's synth pop. And it's got that synth pop sound that they're touching on with Butterfly 3000, but it's so much more mature in what it's doing and what the synths are doing. It's got unbelievably catchy melody hooks, and that synth pop sound is so happy and positive. I love Chang-yi. It took me a while to get used to it, but this is a great song as well. And then we get into what I didn't know was coming until I listened to the album the first time, where the happiness that you get at the beginning, despite it being tied to PDA, it's all gone. Then we start hitting Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh, I think it says co-written by Cookie. I want to learn a little bit more about how this song was written. But Gilgamesh opens where it's got the motif, the Gilgamesh, like evil sound, where it seems like someone might be pushing on like a whammy bar or something to lower it. That's a motif, and it's got this nasty the doom 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 like beat going on. Cavs starts smacking the drums. Yeah, last four songs. I love the first three songs on the album too in their own right, but yeah, the last four songs, I was like, you gotta love when the band doesn't release their best work as part of their singles, and I think that's what they did here. And Gilgamesh, it starts getting evil. You get MC, I'm calling him MC Ambi. Ambrose is the one, he's done the most work working on hip-hop music. He rapped the Grim Reaper, and he did the rap on Set. He comes back in Gilgamesh, and I love the tone that he has on his verses here. He's spitting hot fire, and Stu, the way Stu's voice on Gilgamesh is also incredible. I love what he's doing with it. This is one where I'm wondering if my fiance would like Gilgamesh. I'm not sure. This one we're getting to squelchy acid techno. sounds. I hear this song. You think about if you watch like a movie from the late '90s, like a Blade or like The Matrix 2, where it's like a bunch of sweaty people jumping around. That's where we start getting into Gilgamesh, which is such a compelling turn of pace from Chang-Yi, but I think it's great. For now, I think this is my favorite track, but it's very close with another one. I hold like a pure stank face the whole time I'm listening to Gilgamesh. I love Gilgamesh. I think it's a fantastic song. And then we go into Swan Song, which is the other song. This one, the highlight moment is when they get the robot voice to do the eye dilates, the air gyrates, gate in the sky, mortal to die. Yeah, and near the end, it's so tasty. But so Swan Song, this one we're talking about, we started going into the Sweaty nightclub last time. This is where it turns into, like, this is the rager Swan Song. This is the counterpart to Dragon off of PetroDragonic Apocalypse, and I think that it fits. It fits the bill. It's a consistent banger. Like I said, the drops hit hard. The melody's great. Things like Swan Song, you compare that to Chang-Yi, like where it shows the true sonic diversity that they have going on here too. They're playing instruments that they're not familiar with, but they're touching on so many different electronic genres, like throughout the history of electronic music. It's I love it. So, and then after Swan Song, we have the final concluding track, Extinction. I think Extinction's got the best hook on the whole thing, like that. I can see everything in the music. That one. Sorry, it's not all baked in. I don't have the best ear yet. I know that this Extinction could be a live closing song. That like one that they could play instead of Float Along, Fill Your Lungs. It's cathartic. Given the hell that you just went through after they put you through Gilgamesh, when you're just like Jesus, and then Swan Song, which even turns it up a notch after that. It's a cathartic closer, and the extended version it's so nice that you get to live in that world for so long. Yeah, like I said, it's absolutely gonna roll. What you might have noticed here is that I said that I love every one of these songs. I listened to this album, like I said, 4 times, the extended version 4 times. Before I went to bed yesterday, I listened to the standard version for the first time since I listened to the album for the first time, and I love the standard version too. Like the extended version is better. You get the whole idea of what the songs are going for, but it is 90 minutes long. Like that's undeniable. And when the standard version shrinks it all down to under 30 minutes, but you still get all the ideas of the songs, and it just takes you from one to another, and there's no stopping. Yeah, and you still get the jams of Gilgamesh and the Swan Song, and Set. That's where Set goes the hardest, I think, and you get the main parts of Silver Cord and so on. So I think that the move to have the 2 different versions of this might be better than they even thought that it was, because I see both of them fill their own space for how I want to listen to them. And yeah, like I said, you heard me say I love every song on this album. I can see myself listening to it for years. I don't love every song off of KG. I don't love every song off of Omnium. Do you know where that means that the Silver Cord goes? This weird turn into techno music. I'm gonna put it right next to PetroDragonic Apocalypse. Look at this. I'm gonna put them like the Yin Yang albums, the 1, 2, or not Yin Yang for KGLW, but I'm gonna put them right next to each other. And we'll see if I turn out to be wrong. I know the general reception of this it's not the best. Like a lot of people are loving it, but it's not received as well. But over the past month, knowing that I was going to be making this tier list, listening to every album twice, just over the past month, I've listened to them a lot more than that. Knowing how to play like 60 of their songs or something like that, I'm going to be able to listen to this forever. The way that the songs develop and the way that they all work together, it creates a space, like a bunch of sonic spaces that I didn't expect to be able to hear from them anytime soon. Like Thea evolving over 20 minutes, it's engaging, more engaging every time I listen to it. they touch on, I know it's all electronic, but they touch on so many different styles of electronic music in a way that's so compelling and also so giz. I love it, but they take some right turns. They're going off the walls. The silver chord, they have nothing that sounds like that. Yeah, I think a lot. I mean, almost every giz gets better with repeated listens. Maybe if you start spinning "Made in Timeland" or "Willoughby's Beach" repeatedly, just be like, I kind of get what you're going for. But this is, I cannot wait to hear it live. Burnt Toast Ghost. I don't know how they're gonna do it, but I cannot wait to hear it live. But the silver chord seems like the most, like the definitely one that grows on you with listens. The first time I listened to it, I was like, this is gonna be A or B tier. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm a giz head. I know what I'm talking about, and I'm gonna be putting this in A or B tier based on my first listen. And I was like, I just needed to like really sit with each of the songs and settle into what they were going for and how they were evolving. And I like I said, I love every song on here. I think they're all amazing, and that's not the case for like almost the rest of these, because the King Gizzard ethos. You just got a creation above nothing else. Just keep making albums. Not everything's going to be perfect, but perfectionism means that you'll come out with an album once every 5 years or whatever. I love Tame Impala, but that's an example of perfectionism, where every song's it's gotta be precise and perfect. And what that means is you get 4 albums, and that's all you have to live with. With Giz, you don't get that. But they were able to explore so many different genres of electronic music, create such interesting harmonic changes in these songs. I think that I know that nobody's going to be putting it this high. I'm putting my foot down, and I think that it's going to maybe it won't be above Nonagon Infinity. Okay, I'm just putting it next to PetroDragonic Apocalypse, maybe for symbolism. But I think that it's going to belong up here as like one of their all-time bests. Yeah, they definitely prioritize fun. I guess that's a good closing message. Is a lot of their music, it's fun is a priority, and the joy of music is clearly felt. And when they play live, you can definitely see that they're having fun playing with each other, even if they're not they're not a bunch of pyrotechnics and stuff like that. But here on the silver chord, you can hear it's the 6 boys who are unbelievably talented. When they're at a show and they're warming up, they warm up by someone naming a song, and they just play it as a warm up, like a not one of their songs, but just a song, and they'll just play it just by ear, just out of nowhere. They'll warm up with that. This is 6 dudes like stepping completely out of their comfort zone, making something insane, but listening to each other over time and really working on getting better as they're doing it. And I think that the result is beautiful. And I can't wait for my Ancient Light edition to come in. I can't wait to spin that 90-minute bad boy. And I'm going to look back on this in a year, and I'm confident that I'm going to be happy that I placed it this high. Maybe I'll move it down a little bit. We'll see if I regret it. But I think that the silver chord, it's like a 9 out of 10. It's a 9 out of 10 album. It definitely takes some listening to, but that's it. I've been talking for 3 hours and 22 minutes. I've taken 1 sip of water. I forgot to hold my mic up to my face. I appreciate you joining me for however much you did. I don't know how much of the woos you could hear outside. You couldn't smell the cat poop. I couldn't smell the cat poop. I only sweat through, well, I guess I sweat through this shirt too, so I have that other one as a backup. But either way, thank you for sticking around for however much you did. I'll work on putting in those timestamps and stuff at some point in the future. But for now, here's my King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard tier list. It's a little bit changed from the last time. I moved Oddments down, moved LW up. I know I made some serious mistakes, but I'm pretty okay with how this one turned out. Hope that you all have a great day. You deserve it. And I'll see you next time. Bye.